Testing 1, 2, 3. Give me a 1 in the chat room if the audio quality is A-OK. Give me a 1 in the chat room if the audio quality is A-OK. I see a 1. You know, I've always bragged on myself that I'm real good at reading people's body language and sizing people up real quickly. Haven't I always said that? Not only in respect to women, but men too. And I said, you always know you're good at reading people when you can predict shit they do before they do it. You can predict shit that people are going to do before they do it. I'm going to hit the ground running on this one, man. So if I skip over some chats in the chat room, I'm trying not to skip over super chats. But other than that, I'm not. For those who don't know, first of all, some people in my chat room might not be familiar with a guy named Rollo Tomassi. Let me this guy. That's Rollo Tomassi. Not his real name, of course. Because if you've ever watched a movie called LA Confidential, you know that was a fictional character in the movie LA Confidential. So that's actually not even his real name. That's not his real name. I first came across paths with Rollo, I think it was back in 2015, because a few of my people who used to listen to my blog talk radio show called Upfront and Straightforward with Alan Roger Currie. You know, most of my listeners and followers would always give me suggestions on who they felt I should interview. I would, regularly get emails and messages saying, hey, Alan, have you ever thought about interviewing so-and-so? Have you ever thought about interviewing so-and-so? And I want to say it was around 2015 when somebody came to me and sent me a message saying, hey, Alan, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy named Rollo Tomassi. He wrote a book called The Rational Male. And I said, no, I'm not familiar with him, but I can easily do my due diligence, which I did. Let me go to the specific date when I interviewed him. Look on the internet. Okay, that was April 2016. Okay, I interviewed him on March 31st of 2016. So what's that? About just over 6 years ago. That's when I first that wasn't when I first became familiar. I first became familiar with him, I want to say the latter part of 2015 because of some of my followers. And then I interviewed him again on my blog talk radio show, Upfront and Straightforward, on Thursday, March 31st of 2016. And we had a decent interview. Some things in his book, he's most well known for his book, The Rational Male. And some things he said in regards to this book I agree with, some things I disagree with. But it ended up overall, a lot of people enjoyed the interview. Then the next thing that happened was I got an invitation in spring of 2017 from Anthony Johnson. I can't see without my reading glasses on. Anthony Johnson, who's the owner and founder of 21 Studios, who sponsors the 21 convention. Spring of 2017, I got an invitation to speak at the 21 convention. I was actually the first African-American self-help guru to ever speak at the 21 convention. That's my claim to fame in regards to 21 convention. Yeah, I was the very first African-American self-help guru to speak at the 21 convention. And if you know the history between Anthony and Rollo, there was a time when Anthony and Rollo were like this. They were tight. They were tight. And then roughly 2 years later, they had a major falling out. I think they became tight in 2016. And Rollo, Anthony informed me, Rollo was one of the ones who recommended me to be invited as a speaker, which I appreciated at the time. He was one of the ones who recommended. Now, Anthony knows this. I had lightheartedly told Anthony that his invitation was about 5 or 6 years late. Because truthfully, I felt like I should have been invited to speak at the 21 convention as early as 2011, 2012. Because there was 2 or 3 other people who ended up speaking at the 21 convention before me that was using my shit. That was using my shit. Which pissed me. You know me. You know the whole he stole my shit, Alan Roger Currie. That shit pissed me off, man. I was listening to people speaking at the 21 convention who had basically ripped off my shit. But, as they say, better late than never. So that's when I met him in person. Rollo. I met him at the 2017 21 convention. And then I spoke a year later at the at the 2018 21 convention. Moderators, if there are any here, let me know if I miss a super chat. So I got some phlegm, feel like it's stuck in my throat. So yeah, we had 2 face-to-face interactions, 2017 21 convention, 2018 21 convention. And then after that, he mentioned me. I actually was on his panel like 3 or 4 times. He used to be a head of what he called the Red Pill Group, Red Pill Man Group or something like that. Yeah, I think it was called the Red Pill Man Group podcast. And I participated in like 3 or 4 of his podcasts. And then one time, if you go into my archives, you'll see this video. He one time did a podcast where he gave Mo One a glaring endorsement. I think this is back in 2000. I want to say 2019. Could have been even 2018. It's either 2018, 2000. I believe it's 2019, where he basically said, now that we're living in the current climate of the Me Too era, invalid date rape charge accusations, invalid sexual harassment charge accusations. He said, given that we're living in this type of climate, I'm slightly paraphrasing his words, but this was the essence of what he said. He said, I think over the next 10, 15, 20 plus years, guys will need to start adopting Alan Roger Currie's Mode 1 approach so that they can cut through the bullshit real quick and potentially prevent them from being invalidly charged with sexual assault, date rape, sexual harassment, etc. Just cut through the bullshit real quick. That was the last time I remember him giving me a glaring endorsement of Mode 1, which I appreciated. And I did a video on it. It's called something like Rollo Tomassi. Let me look it up. Okay, these are all the videos where I mentioned, a few of the videos where I mentioned Rollo's name. This is the video I was talking about. It's called Rollo Tomassi agrees with ARC's assertion that the Mode 1 approach will be the norm in the future. So that was in what? That was in November 11th of 2019. I did that video. Yeah, that was in November 11th of 2019. Now, here was the video which was earlier than that last video, but this video you see right here that says London-based PUA Nick Krauser trashes Mode 1. This is when I first began to change my attitude towards Rollo. This video right here was the first time I began to change a lot, basically lose some of my respect for Rollo. Because he was interviewing this guy, this London-based PUA named Nick Krauser on his YouTube channel. And Nick Krauser at one point just trashes Mode 1. Just trashes Mode 1. And I'm thinking, because Rollo would always refer to himself as a friend of mine, he would always give people the impression that me and him were cool friends. Well, if you're cool friends with somebody, you ain't gonna let nobody trash your friend's work. Now, I could go on a quick side note, because you know in the black manosphere right now, there's some drama going on related to that issue. For now, I ain't gonna mention the names. Some people know what I'm talking about. There's two black male YouTubers that used to be cool, and now they're not cool because one black male YouTuber feels like another black male YouTuber let someone come on his panel and trash him without he defending him. But that's another story for another day. But that's what Rollo did. He let this dude, Nick Krauser, trash my Mode 1 approach. And he, at no time did he say, hey, come on, Nick, man. Alan Roger Currie is a friend of mine, man. That's my boy, man. Come on, man. Chill out. Something to that effect. He just let him trash. And I called out Rollo on Twitter, man. I called him out on Twitter. I said, well, I basically was like, what the fuck was that? You gonna let this motherfucker who don't know shit about smooth, seductive verbal game to talk trash about me? My game will run circles around Nick Krauser. Quote me on that shit. That motherfucker ain't got no verbal game. They ain't got no smooth, seductive verbal game like this brother you listening to. None of them European dudes are on my level when it comes to smooth, seductive verbal game. Quote me on that shit. I'll run circles around all those motherfuckers. All their manipulative tactics. That's why they got to resort to that manipulative bullshit, because they ain't got no verbal game that will leave a woman's pussy dripping wet like I do. I would fuck their bitches. Yeah, I said it. That's how angry I am right now. Motherfuckers can't hang with me, and he gonna let that dude trash me? That's when I first lost respect for that motherfucker, Rollo. That's when I first start losing respect for his ass. He gonna let this motherfucker come on his show, and he didn't make not one attempt to defend me. And then, as you know, he did that last year. Where's that video at? These goofy motherfuckers. A guy named I did this in July of last year, where he had this conversation with some guy named Troy Francis and James Tusk, both European PUAs. He got to find this for European PUAs. And it was funny. Here was the thing. He was interviewing these two guys. And first, these two guys start promoting direct game. Rollo asked both of them, which do you prefer between the two, direct game or indirect game? And they said, well, both have their, pros and cons and advantages. But they said, we lean towards direct game. Then they start singing the praises of direct game. But then Rollo said, what do you think about Alan Roger Currie's Mo 1 style direct game? And then they just start dogging me out. They start trashing me. One dude called me a buffoon or something. And then they start trashing my Mo 1 approach. And again, for the second time, Rollo just let that shit happen. Rollo just let that shit happen. But yet, in this video, when he's interviewing these guys, he started trying to act like me and him were cool. He said, oh, a lot of people think me and Alan Roger Currie don't like each other. Oh, we're cool. That's what he said. He said, oh, we're cool. We're still friends. We just have philosophical disagreements on his Mo 1 approach, but we're cool. No, we're not cool, motherfucker. No, we're not. No, we're not. So let me make that clear. No, we're not cool. That's one thing I can't stand, man, is when I've had a few people do that on YouTube. People would try to act like they're cooler with me than they really are. I can call out some names, but for now, I won't. But there's been at minimum at least a half a dozen guys on YouTube that at times over the last 5 years will try to act like me and them are cooler or closer than we really are. I'm not really exceptionally close to any motherfucker on YouTube. Let me really make that clear. I'm not exceptionally close to any motherfucker on YouTube. To just squash all that. Here's when somebody know they real cool with me. Is when I talk to you a lot privately. If all my interactions with you are on the internet, and specifically on YouTube, but I never talk to you on the phone privately, then me and you ain't that close. We ain't cool. If I'm cool, really cool, genuinely cool with somebody, I'm going to talk to them on the phone an average of once, at bare minimum, I say once a month. No, I say bare minimum, maybe once every 2 months. Yeah, if I don't talk to you away from the internet and away from YouTube on the phone, an average, I say a bare minimum of an average of at least once every 2 months, you ain't close to me. We might have a friendly, cordial, somewhat respectful relationship. I might have friendly, cordial, and respectful sentiments towards you, but we ain't close. If I'm close to motherfucker, I'm going to talk to you on the phone privately. I don't do that right now. I don't do that with anybody from YouTube. There's nobody on YouTube that I talk to privately. Nobody. There's nobody on YouTube that I talk to privately. I think the last person from YouTube that I used to talk to privately was C Boogie. Sega Boogie is probably the last person from YouTube that I used to talk to privately from time to time. And me and him haven't talked in like probably at least a year. The last time I talked to C Boogie on the phone was like a year ago. But that was probably the last person from YouTube that I used to talk to him privately in addition to talking to him on YouTube. But so anyway, going back to Rollo. Yeah, man, he was trying to, I didn't like nothing about it. And I went in on that video. I ain't gonna rehash that video. Y'all can go watch it. I went in on Rollo and them other two dating coaches on that video, man. Because see, here's what I'm tired of. And I've been tired of it ever since, where's the dude? The first dude who was guilty of doing this. Here's when I can't stand it. Rollo does it in his book. He does it in his book. I've talked about this on a few videos. Here's what I can't stand, man, when it comes to the whole direct game versus indirect game. I hate guys who are indirect that try to present themselves as if they're direct. Oh, I can't stand that. I cannot stand guys who are indirect, but they try to present themselves as if they're direct. And in full disclosure, I did not thoroughly read Rollo's entire book. So I'm not going to disparage his whole book because I don't like to offer a true critique of a book until I've thoroughly read it from start to finish. I've read, as of before this live stream, I probably read about 4 chapters from his new book. I read 4 chapters from his new book. First person I got in a heated debate was this guy, this PUA from London named Yad. He's a classic. He's probably the first guy I ran into that was guilty of doing what I just talked about. He was a guy who used a lot of indirect game, but he tried to present it like it was direct game. And I would tell him and all his followers, his shit wasn't direct. His shit wasn't direct. Troy Francis shit ain't direct. James Tusk shit ain't direct. None of these conventional PUAs use true direct verbal game. They don't. But yet they'll call themselves direct. See, you know what a lot of them think being direct? They think if you just walk up to a woman and say, wow, you're very beautiful and that's a sexy dress you got on, that's direct. That's essentially what a lot of conventional people, they think if you just straightforwardly give a woman a flattering compliment, that means you're being direct. No, motherfucker, I ain't got shit to do with direct. I ain't got nothing to do with being direct. So you can say that'd be my starting point to go in on his book. His definition and description of direct is totally different than mine. Well, number one now, before I even go into direct or indirect. You know, I'm at to keep, man, Rambo gonna be ready to come out throughout this fucking live stream. Rambo is ready to come out for a lot in this fucking live stream. Because, man, I can't stand to read motherfuckers who think they know that. Who gave credibility? Who told Rollo Tomassi he had the credibility to talk about being a player and game? Who told him that? When did anybody in the manosphere ever say that Rollo Tomassi was any type of ladies' man, womanizer, or player? When did anybody ever say that? I ain't never heard nobody say that about him. Rollo Tomassi is nothing but a long-winded opinion editor. He's a long-winded opinion editor. If you read his book, if you would read this new book he got out, See, here's what true players do, like myself. True players not only going to share knowledge, wisdom, and insight with you on what they believe will help you be successful with women, but they're going to share very specific, detailed stories from their own life that allow you to see how they arrived at their conclusions, how they formed a lot of their beliefs and assertions. That's what I do. I'm probably more known for that than arguably anybody in the space. One thing people say about me, particularly my clients, they be like, man, Alan Roger Currie, that dude got like hundreds, if not thousands, of stories about dealing with women. Like almost all my one-on-one face-to-face coaching sessions, clients have told me that. They like, man, Alan, you have more stories than any PUA or dating coach I've ever come in contact with. I don't just give people knowledge, wisdom, and insight. I have stories that back up everything I'm saying. Rollo ain't got none of that shit. He's giving you advice in his book that's based on other people's shit. What he's seen other people do. What he's seen Eric von Markovic, aka Mystery Method, do. And other PUAs. So he ain't got the credibility to be talking from the perspective of a player. Man, nigga, please. He ain't never had the credibility to talk about being no player. Ever. His expertise is the whole talking about women's financial hypergamous nature, sexually hypergamous nature. Hypergamy is his main area of expertise. And secondly, he likes to talk about how a lot of modern day laws to do with marriage, divorce, child custody negatively affect men's lives. That's his main area of expertise. That's Rollo's main area of expertise, is talking about the financially hypergamous nature of women, the sexually hypergamous nature of women, and how modern day feminism, various aspects of modern day feminism has the potential to negatively affect men's lives. That's his main area. Rollo ain't never been known for being no Mac Daddy, no player, dating coach, none of that shit. That ain't never been his area of expertise, man. I'm not saying that to be insulting. I'm saying that to state facts. That ain't never been his area of expertise. Ain't never been Rollo Tomassi's area of expertise. That's been my area of expertise since the 80s. Drops mic, drops mic, drops mic. Denzel, where you at when I need you? I've been talking about verbal game since the 1980s. Been talking about verbal seduction, kinky, erotic, dirty talk since the 1980s. Been talking about the idea of developing a smooth, seductive mouthpiece since the 1980s. My stories are legendary. Just to put it blunt, among my close friends, fraternity brothers, people who've interacted with me in real life, some of my stories to do with being more one with women are legendary. Rollo ain't on that level. Now, in a way, in his partial defense, he actually says that in the book. Believe it or not. There's a section, he actually says that. I don't remember his exact words, so I'm going to be paraphrasing. Now, some stuff later on in the live stream, I'm going to read verbatim. I'm not going to paraphrase. I'm going to read verbatim what comes from his book. And I can do that because fair use, this is a critique. You're allowed to use excerpts of people's books if you're doing essentially a critique, evaluation of a book. But Rollo basically says that himself in the book. He basically says, I'm not a dating coach. He says, I'm an analyst. He said, what I do is observe things and then analyze them, analyze everything I observe, and then I put it on paper and present it, to my followers and supporters. So he basically means he ain't no dating coach. He not, dude, he don't have the credibility to write what he's calling the definitive guide to being a player, man. Get the fuck out of here. But I'll start off saying, and then I kind of went on a tangent, but one thing I start off saying in this live stream is that one thing I bragged about, man, I know people. When you know people real well, you can predict stuff they're going to do. Man, when I first heard about this book, I said to myself, I said, I bet you. I even told my wife. I said, I bet you he ends up mentioning my name. I knew it. He was. I knew it. I swear to God, I knew it. Even before I read it today, because it just came out today. Just came out this morning. I knew before I read this book, I said, my gut feeling is telling me this guy is going to mention my name and my Mode 1 approach in his book. And sure enough, he did. And that's where he fucked up. And that's the reason I'm doing this damn live stream. If he would have kept my name out of his book and kept my Mode 1 approach brand out of his book, I wouldn't have shit to say on this book. Even if I had disagreements of it, I wouldn't have shit to say. I wouldn't be doing no like live stream about it. But this motherfucker mentioned my name and mentioned my book. He mentioned my name and mentioned my book. If he was going to mention my name and mention my Mode 1 approach, you know what this is what he should have said. This is what he should have said. He should have said something to the effect of, you know what? Because he got a chapter talking about direct game versus indirect game. This is what he should have said. He should have said, hey, man, I have my own thoughts on direct game and I have a lot of thoughts on indirect game. Now, there's one guy associated with the manosphere that has the title of the Godfather of direct verbal game advice and wisdom. His name is Alan Roger Currie. And if you want to learn more about direct verbal game from his perspective, you need to check out all his books. Period. That's the only thing. If Rollo was going to mention my name at all, that's what he should have said. He should have said, hey, I got my thoughts and commentary on direct game. I got my thoughts and commentary on indirect game. There's at least one guy who has the title of the Godfather of direct verbal game, advice and wisdom. His name is Alan Roger Currie. I've interacted with him before. He has some popular books. You should check him out. That's what he should have said. But instead, he takes all these little subtle, none of them are overt jabs, but he takes all these subtle jabs at my Mode 1 approach. Number one, he's not qualified to talk about my fucking Mode 1 approach. Man, if you read his book that came out today and say you knew nothing about Mode 1, but you read his book, man, you think Mode 1 was the craziest, goofiest shit ever. Which is why I sound upset. He shouldn't be talking about the Mode 1 approach. Shouldn't be talking about it. He shouldn't have mentioned my name or the Mode 1 approach in his fucking book. Motherfucker don't know what he's talking about. Let me scroll down and see if I got any super chats. Okay, my bad. I thought I'd miss some super chats, but obviously I didn't. Yeah, man. Again, I can't comment on the whole book because I didn't read the whole book. I browsed through it, but I didn't read the whole thing. So I'm not going to give an overall critique of the entire book because I didn't read the whole book yet. A lot of people use the word creepy without defining it. ARC has proved that it's creepy for a man to there you go. There you go, Cold Steel. Thank you. Yeah, he has a definition of creepy that's totally different from my definition. And I've talked to probably thousands of women, starting with the late 80s, early 90s, up until now. You're talking about a period of at least 30 years. I've had multiple conversations with women about what they find, what type of behavior they find to be creepy. And what they describe to me is totally different than what Rollo describes in his book. Here's what I'm telling you in a nutshell, what women have told me was creepy. And then, see, a lot of guys think if you talk about sex too quickly, too straightforwardly, too explicitly, that's what's going to make you come across and be perceived as creepy. Is if you talk about sex too quickly, too straightforwardly, too explicitly. And Rollo basically plays into that belief in his book. He plays into that belief that that's what's going to make you look creepy. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. At least based on my interactions and conversations with women, that's straight up bullshit. It's actually just the opposite. It's actually just the opposite. I give you one story. I've told this story on at least a couple of videos before. I told you I got a lot of stories. I give you one story related to what I'm talking about. One time I was in the grocery store in Northwest Indiana. And there was this really hot, sexy Caucasian woman. Nice body. Had a body like a black woman. What most brothers would call pog. Fat ass white girl. That's what brothers call pog. P-A-W-G. Small waist, fat ass. She was wearing like this two-piece. Her stomach was exposed. Her waist was exposed. What's that type of material? That like similar to like velvet. She was wearing some kind of two-piece. I don't know what that cloth is. That's similar to velvet or suede jumpsuit. Anyway, she was hot. That's all that matters. She was hot. And I was about to approach her myself. Then I see this corny-looking white dude. Bless his heart. He comes up to her before I could make my move. And starts talking about, get this, I'm not even making this up, dude. Starts talking about vegetable oil, because that's the section they ran, the cooking oil section. And he starts saying, hey, do you use canola oil or do you use olive oil? And I think she said, oh, I prefer olive oil. He was like, yeah. And here was the thing, he was talking about oil, but he was talking with this voice, like you could tell he wanted to fuck. It wasn't just a basic voice, like, oh yes, I like canola oil and I like this type of oil. No, it was more like he was trying to be smooth. He was like, yeah, so yeah, I really like canola oil, and that's better for certain foods. And then sometimes I use just straight butter. And then other times, and he starts going on and on about this oil shit, cooking oil shit. And you can see her gradually starting to get irritated. And finally, about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 minutes into the conversation, she said, if you don't mind, I would just like to continue shopping. If you don't mind, I would like to just continue shopping. He says, oh, okay. No problem. I was thinking. Then he tries to do his pitch, like a lot of indirect guys do. He tries to pitch her. Get this. I got to pause on that. This is what a lot of indirect guys do. One of the dumbest things you could do. He tries to pitch her, throw an advance or proposition towards her after she just rejected him, which is probably the absolute dumbest thing you could do. She just said, basically, could you leave me alone so I continue shopping? And he raised both hands. He went, oh, okay. And then he says, well, I was thinking I might have been able to take you out to dinner, or maybe we could grab some drinks. And she was like, no, thank you. I have a boyfriend. Now, I don't know if she was telling the truth or not, but that's what she told me. She said, no, I have a boyfriend. And he said, okay. Then he walked away. Then I come up to her and I say, I looked at their eyes, I said, wouldn't that conversation go on a lot quicker if he would have just been straightforward and told you that he was approaching you because he wanted to fuck you because you got this nice, juicy ass? That's exactly what I said. I said, wouldn't that conversation have gone quicker if he would have had the balls to just tell you straightforwardly that he wanted to fuck you because you got this nice, juicy ass? And see, some indirect guys will say, oh, that's too forward. That's too blunt. That's too explicit. First thing she did, she started giggling and blushing and giggling. And she kind of playfully hit me on my chest, like basically she was co-signing with me. And she just was like, yes. She said, and here's where she says the key thing. She said, I don't understand why men think we can't tell when they want to get in our pants. That's exactly what this woman said. She said, I don't understand why most men don't seem to have a clue as to what that we know when men want to get in our pants. And then she went on to say, and if that is the case, I would rather men just come out and say that shit. That's exactly what she said. If you reference my conversation with the woman that used to be my mother's former student, that I talk about in my different versions of Mo 1, that's what she broke down. That was one thing in that infamous conversation that she broke down. She basically told me, that was back to what, October 1990. She said, Alan, I'm going to tell you something that most men don't seem to realize. All us women know, as soon as you are friendly with us and flirt with us to some degree, that you want to fuck us. We know that. It ain't rocket science. She said, we know when y'all men want to fuck us. It ain't like we standing there trying to figure out, like, wow, does he want to just watch TV with us? Or does he just want to watch a movie with us? Or is he trying to fuck? No, women know you trying to fuck them. Even if they don't know for a fact, if they have a high degree of confidence and self-esteem and they look good, they're going to assume that. They're going to assume that all men trying to fuck them. Now, see, if that guy was just talking about in the grocery store was to read Rollo's book, he would think what he did was on point. He would think what he did was on point, talking about cooking oil for 3, 4, 5 minutes, some goofy ass shit, some corny ass shit. And I just went up to her and talked about her big, juicy ass. Now, I didn't end up fucking her. So, in full disclosure, I didn't. For guys wondering in the chat room, did you fuck her out? No, I didn't end up fucking her. But I was Mo 1 hardcore with her. I didn't end up fucking her. I think she genuinely did have a boyfriend. But, so I shot my bid. But at least when I shot my bid, I shot it straightforwardly, man. I told her she had a big, juicy ass. And she loved that. She ended the conversation by saying, I wish more men were like you. That's literally what she told me. At the end of the conversation, she said, I wish there was more men like you. Women, and anyway, so that's just one story, but every woman I've ever talked to, when we got on the subject of, I would ask women, what type of behavior makes you think a guy is creepy versus not creepy? All of them said it had nothing to do with how quickly, straightforwardly, or explicitly you talk about sex. That has nothing to do with being creepy. Like nothing. Real talk, that has literally nothing to do with being creepy. Here's what contributes to you being creepy. Number one, shifty eye. What do I always talk about? What's on my logo? What's on my Mo 1 logo? Well, y'all see it over this shoulder. You see my eyes? You see how focused they are? Huh? You see how focused my eyes are? The way I'm looking directly into this webcam, that's how I look at women. So I'm gonna tell you some of the characteristics that women have told me that causes them to look at a man as creepy. Number one, when a man has shifty eyes, so he's coming up, hey, what's your name? Hey, my name is Ralph. How you doing? Okay, yeah. Uh-huh. Say now, this is a little exaggerated what I'm doing, but it would be the type of demeanor you would have that makes women think you creepy. Hey, how you doing there? Hey, my name's Ralph, and I was wondering, like, if you want to go eat a hot dog with me, and see how socially awkward that is. See how socially awkward that is. Anytime you immediately come off like your social skills are less than average / awkward, women are going to look at you as creepy. That don't have nothing to do with whether you're talking about sex or not talking about sex. The content or subject matter of your conversation ain't got shit to do with shit. Okay? Let's get that straight. Whether you're talking about sex or not talking about sex, they ain't got shit to do with shit about the creepy shit. Creepy is number one, when your whole facial demeanor and your body demeanor, that's why when I do one-on-one face-to-face coaching sessions with guys, that's one of the things I emphasize. That's one of my strongest things I emphasize when I do my one-on-one face-to-face coaching session, is to make sure that male clients of mine don't have creepy body language. Non-confident, nervous, socially awkward, creepy body language. So yeah, shifty eyes, a hesitant sounding voice, a bunch of yeah, I give you example. I'm gonna give you 2 examples using basically the same words and tell you the difference between creepy and non-creepy. So to show you that it ain't got nothing to do with the words or the subject matter, it has to do more with the presentation. Let's say I went up to a woman. I was like, hey, is it your name Cindy? I think you're in my psychology class. Yeah. Hey, my name is Ralph, and I was just wondering, I was wondering if we could maybe, I would invite you to my place, my dormitory room, and we could watch Netflix, and then maybe I could stick my cock in your mouth, and if you wouldn't mind, I would love to put my cock in your ass. Once the movie's over and stuff. If you're fine with that. Now I'm saying the same thing in a non-creepy manner. Hey, isn't your name Cynthia? Aren't you in my psychology class? I'm Alan. Good to meet you. I gotta tell you, you're a very attractive, very sexy woman. Very sexy woman. Listen here, I want to invite you to my place sometime within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I could bullshit you by telling you I want to watch a movie with you or sip wine with you, but that would be me being full of shit. You know what I want to do? I want to watch you slowly undress in front of me. I want to watch you slowly undress in front of me so I can see that beautiful body of yours unclothed. Then I'm going to kiss you. I'm going to caress your body. I'm going to get your pussy juicy wet. Then I'm going to slide my hard, juicy dick all in your pussy. What's your thoughts? That second example, ain't no woman going to call you creepy. I've been X-rated, triple X-rated with thousands of women in my life. Not one time, and this is the honest truth, not one time have I ever had a woman refer to me as creepy. Now, I've had my share of criticisms, but I've never specifically had a woman describe my Mode 1 or Mode 1 hardcore approach as creepy. I've had women call it, probably the worst thing I've had to call it simply rude. I've had some women say, your forward style is rude or socially inappropriate. too bold. Usually they just say bold. I've had maybe a handful say too bold. What other negative criticisms have I had about my moment approach? Usually, yeah. Most one common when I was, yeah, this I've had a few. Here's the thing though. Here's what I said. You know what I'm about to say. Here's the most interesting thing about my life. The most interesting thing about my life. And this is why a lot of women, not men, but a lot of women wanted me to write my book, Who Said Again? Because women who dealt with me knew that I have just an interesting history with women. Without getting lengthy, here's the deal. Do you know that probably no less than 3 out of every 5 women that gave me the most negative reactions, full of the most harsh criticisms and insults, were women that I ultimately ended up fucking? That's why I've done a bunch of videos saying that negative reactions don't really mean shit. I would say on average, 3 out of every 5 women that have given me a really, really negative reaction, like just full of criticism, insults, I ultimately ended up fucking those women because they were erotic hypocrites. They were not rejectors. They were not rejectors. See, I just said this literally on my last live stream on Sunday. The 2 women that's going to give you the most negative reactions when you're Mo 1 and even Mo 1 Hardcore is going to be erotic hypocrites and manipulative time. I say manipulative time wasters, number 1. Manipulative time wasters, number 1. Number 2, erotic hypocrites. You would think it would be rejectors. That's what you would think. You would think it'd be rejectors. Dude, I can tell you with conviction. In my lifetime, less than 5% of the women I interacted with that were genuine rejectors gave me a harsh reaction to me being Mo 1 or Mo 1 Hardcore. If you listen to Verbal Seduction Story number 4 with the R&B singer that I was Mo 1 Hardcore with in the bookstore in Westwood, her reaction to me is more representative of my interactions with rejectors. Rejectors don't go off on you. They really don't. I said most maybe 5% of the time. But 95% of the time, true rejectors, they just let you know in a very calm, straightforward manner. They'll say something like, oh, no, I'm not interested. But at least half the time, they'll compliment. Like I had a client recently in the last 2 or 3 weeks tell me he was Mo 1 Hardcore with this woman. And on the bad side, on the downside, she rejected him. But she said he complimented his approach. She was like, "Ooh, I love how bold and straightforward you are. I'm sorry I'm romantically involved with someone, so I can't connect with you. But man, your approach is so bold. It's so straightforward. It's like you're so confident in yourself." That's what my client told me this woman told her. That's the type of reactions I get, man, when I'm on 1 Hardcore with women, when they've rejected me. Genuine rejectors. They don't go off on you. Again, maybe at most, maybe roughly 5% of the time, they might. The main 2 women out of my 5 archetypes that's going to go off on you, number 1 is manipulative time waste. Why is that? Why is that? Let me do my quick quiz of the chat room, man. Anybody in the chat room pretty much knows. But why is that? Why do women who are manipulative time wasters have such a theatrical and negative reaction when you Mo 1 or Mo 1 Hardcore? At least one person tell me in the chat room. Why do manipulative time wasters have more of a angry reaction than, say, a genuine rejecter? Well, that's one. Yep. Yeah, well, all of these are valid. Iceberg. You stop them from giving you the possible. Bingo. Bingo, 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 bingo. All of these are valid. Elwood, they can't take advantage of you. You fucking up their program because they can't use you. I don't know what this is in regards to. I want to tell a podcast for you. I don't know what podcast you, which one you do. Yeah, blows up their game. Yeah. I mean, I go into more detail in my books. I don't want to rehash my books. But just give me a nutshell. Here's the 2 reasons why manipulative time wasters and erotic hypocrites give you really theatrical negative reactions versus, say, a rejecter. Start manipulative time wasters, and all the guys said it. See, when you're mode 1, let's say your objective is casual sex. If you're mode 1 with a manipulative time waster, then you're really executing a 2-way rejection, is what you're doing in a nutshell. You're executing a 2-way rejection. See, a manipulative time waster, she don't want to give you no pussy. Not at all. She don't want to give you no pussy. She just wants to use you for either one of these 2 things, if not both. She wants to use you for either flattering, entertaining, and emotionally empathetic, non-sexual attention and companionship. Flattering, entertaining, and emotionally empathetic, non-sexual attention and companionship, and or she wants to use you for your financial and materialistic generosity. So when you're mode 1 with a woman who's a manipulative time waster, what you're essentially saying to a woman, maybe not in these exact words, but in essence, what you're basically saying to a woman is, I want to fuck you, but I'm not going to jump through any hoops or invest a lot of time and money in order to do it. I want to fuck you, but I'm not going to jump through any hoops or invest a significant amount of time and or money in order to do it. And women, manipulative time wasters, don't want to hear that. Because number 1, they already don't want to fuck you. That's number 1. They don't want you to fuck them. They're basically a rejecter in a reciprocator's clothing. Just like you say, there's a wolf in sheep's clothing. A manipulative time waster is a rejecter in reciprocator's clothing. They want you to think that they are on the verge of potentially being a reciprocator. That's how they run game on you. They want you to think that you got at least a 10% chance of getting in their pants, when in reality, you got a 0% chance of getting in their pants. And anyway, without going longer, the main books you need to read about manipulative time wasters, of course, is my most recent book, No Free Attention, covers manipulative time wasters and the possibility of sex. Those are my 2 main books that emphasize the archetype of the manipulative time waster. Then right under the manipulative time waster in terms of negative reactions is the erotic hypocrite. The erotic hypocrite. See, I've always told clients, here's what you got to understand about erotic hypocrites. Erotic hypocrites and manipulative time wasters are basically 2 sides of the same coin. They have some similarities and they have at least 1 or 2 differences. They're 2 sides of the same coin. Here's where they're similar. The erotic hypocrite is similar to a manipulative time waster in the sense that ideally she wants to exploit you for your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship, and she wants to exploit you for your financial and materialistic generosity. So in that sense, they're both like twins. Manipulative time wasters and erotic hypocrites are like twins in that regard. Here's the main area they're different. No matter what you do with a manipulative time waster, she ain't never giving you no pussy. She ain't gonna never suck your dick. she ain't gonna never give you no pussy. You have a 0% chance of fucking a manipulative time waster. She is not interested in you like that. She ain't feeling you like that. Even if you offer her just straight up money, like you were to say to her, I'll give you $500 if you give me some pussy, she ain't gonna give you no pussy. Because she ain't interested in you. She is not interested in your dick ever being in her mouth or her pussy. Ever. Like not even one time. That's a manipulative time waster. She does not want sexual intimacy with you at all. Whereas an erotic hypocrite is like a, as I say in my book, a covert or undercover call girl. Erotic hypocrite, she'll give you some pussy if you wine and dine her or give her some money straight up. She'll go ahead and give you some pussy, but she ain't gonna respect you. She's gonna look at you as a financially generous beta male. So if you turn to tricking or whining and dining, she'll do on the positive end, you'll end up getting the pussy because she want that money, but she ain't gonna respect you. See, the only motherfuckers that she respects enough to give them pussy for free is confident, dominant alpha males. Confident, dominant alpha males. That's the only guy she gonna give pussy to for free. And you gotta have an A+ mouthpiece in order to break down an erotic hypocrite. You gotta have a badass motherfucking mouthpiece. I've broken down hundreds of erotic hypocrites in my life. Women who basically wanted me ideally to pay for the pussy or at minimum spend a lot of time with them before getting the pussy. And I got the pussy from the same day I met them because I'm a bad motherfucker. And don't hesitate to let people know I'm a bad motherfucker. I got the credibility to write my books, unlike Rollo Tomassi. Now, I ain't saying he ain't got the credibility to write none of his books. You know, he had the credibility to write his original book, The Rational Male. I don't know if I even read the other books he got. But this book, his player book, man, come on. Come on, man. Rollo again, man. I said for the second time, man, he ain't got the credibility to write no player's handbook, man. He ain't got the credibility to write no book like that. And he for damn sure needed to keep my name and my Mode One approach brand out his book. He refers to me as old friend. See, I was talking about that earlier in this live stream. I can't when people try to act like they're cooler with you than they. Hey man, I don't consider myself a friend of Rollo no more. There was a point when we had a very respectful relationship where I might have went ahead and called us friends. But starting with no later than last year, really technically 2019, when he let them that got trashed my Mode One approach and he didn't defend it, I was like, fuck Rollo. I was like, fuck that motherfucker. He talking to dudes who don't have 1/4 my verbal talent. 1/4. None of them motherfuckers done got a woman's pussy wet just by talking dirty to him. None of them, man. All the motherfuckers he holds in high esteem. Ain't none of them motherfuckers left a woman's pussy dripping wet within the first 5 minutes of conversation like this brother has right here. I didn't talk to women for literally just 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. And those women would lean towards me and say, you got my pussy so wet. You got my pussy so wet. Oh shit, you got my pussy dripping wet. Have any of these European PUAs had that type of reaction from a woman? No, they ain't. You know they ain't. Them corny motherfuckers. Them corny ass motherfuckers. They ain't left no woman with her telling you that her pussy was dripping wet in 5 minutes or less like this motherfucker right here. That's why I've had close to 1,000 women pay me money. Pay me money for phone sex. I done made like $25,000 off of women in my life for them paying me for phone sex. Because of this badass mouthpiece. Facts. Drops mic. Denzel, where you at when I need you? Them motherfuckers trying to offer critique of my game, and this shit is weak and corny. They think because they get a bitch in bed that means they done something, man. A retarded motherfucker can get a bitch in bed if he holds up a $100 bills. That don't mean shit to me that you got a bitch in bed. That don't mean shit. That don't mean shit. That don't mean you got no game simply because you got a bitch in bed. That don't mean shit. What means shit is when you got women begging you for the dick because you got their pussy so wet. Begging you to fuck them, like I have. Listen to my show, The Erotic Conversationalist, and then try to talk shit to me. Listen to my show. Where's my thing for it? I don't see it. Listen to some of my episodes of Erotic Conversation if you think I'm just expressing hyperbole. Shit, you'll see this is a bad motherfucker you listening to. I had a lot of those women, man, after that interview was begging me to fuck them. Begging me to fuck them. I've had women I interviewed that were married, engaged to be married, had a boyfriend begging me to fuck them because of this badass mouthpiece. And you gonna offer a critique in your little book about Mo 1. You don't know shit about Mo 1. Yeah, Rambo came out full force. Shit. When I get angry, my ego comes out full force. Everybody know that by now. If there's one characteristic about when I get, for me, being angry and being egotistical are almost synonymous with each other. The angrier I am, the more egotistical I become. So when I'm angry, I'm gonna let all y'all motherfuckers know who's the bad motherfucker around here when it comes to verbal seduction, verbal game. Still listen to these weak ass motherfuckers. Again, they think because they got a bitch in bed that means they somebody. That don't mean shit to me. That don't mean shit to me. If you're lying to a woman and giving her an impression you want to be her next long-term boyfriend and she's dumb enough to fall for that and let you fuck her with your lying game, that don't mean shit to me. That ain't impressing me. That's some weak-ass game. You ain't got no balls. Shit, I got the balls to tell a bitch, I will never be your boyfriend, ever. You will never be my girlfriend. You will never be my wife, and I'm still gonna fuck the shit out of you. I've told women that multiple times directly. I tell women, you will never be my girlfriend. See, and now this brings me back to one of his chapters, direct versus indirect. See, a lot of these conventional PUAs and indirect motherfuckers, man, again, they think giving a woman a compliment means you direct. That ain't direct. Here's what I've always defined as direct versus indirect. Start with indirect. Wait, I felt something on my nose. Everybody tries to have their own definition. I'm gonna tell you, and my definitions are more in line with people who work in the field of verbal communications would agree with. None of my definitions go against what people who are considered verbal communication experts would argue with. But a lot of these conventional PUAs, they try to act like some aspects of indirect. For example, there's a lot of indirect guys that will try to make you believe that mode 2 is direct. Oh, well, there's a lot of indirect guys that will try to make you believe that being mode 2 is representative of being direct. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. Here's the simple definitions of direct versus indirect. Well, I'll just use the definition I have on here. Indirect verbal game. Indirect verbal game is represented when you get a woman in bed because of your ability to consistently give women the blatant misimpression, basically a misleading impression, or at minimum, the vague and ambiguous misimpression that you are interested in developing and maintaining a long-term, emotionally profound, strictly monogamous romantic relationship with them. In other words, You never, ever make it straightforwardly clear to a woman that your primary interest is in indulging in one or more episodes of nothing more than short-term, non-monogamous casual sex. That's indirect game. In a nutshell, that's indirect game. Basically, anytime, again, let's start with the objective of casual sex. Let's say your objective is casual sex. You don't want that woman to be your next long-term girlfriend or future wife. You just want her to be a fuck buddy. Okay, let's start there. If you approach a woman knowing that all you want from casual sex from her, but you in no way, shape, or form make that objective clear to her, then you're exhibiting indirect verbal game. Plain and simple. If you want nothing more than casual sex from a woman, but you're talking to her in a way that makes her feel like you're interested in both her sexual and non-sexual companionship. You're talking to her in a way that makes her feel like you genuinely value, desire, and appreciate both her sexual and non-sexual companionship. That's indirect verbal game. That's indirect verbal game. Plain and simple. I was the first guy associated with Manosphere to divide indirect verbal game into two subcategories. See, most people before I came along, they just divided game into direct game, or what I call direct verbal game, direct game, or indirect game. My claim to fame is that I divided each into two subcategories. Hold on a second. Yeah, see, here's verbal game. And there's direct game and indirect game. See, I took direct game and divided it into two subcategories, which is mode 1 and mode 4, and indirect into mode 2 and mode 3. So still sticking to indirect verbal game. I haven't got direct verbal game just yet. Yeah, I'll redid what I have on here. Indirect verbal game represents anytime your verbal communication style is either vague and ambiguous, what I refer to as mode 2 behavior, or intentionally dishonest, disingenuous, misleading, and manipulative, and or cowardly, which is what I refer to as mode 3 behavior. When one is vague and ambiguous, mode 2, the man does not flat out lie about what type of romantic or strictly sexual companionship he wants from a woman. But at the same time, he's not 100% candid and forthright about what type of romantic or strictly sexual companionship he is seeking from a woman either. So that's indirect. Yeah. In real simple terms, man, if you're trying to fuck a woman, and more specifically, you're trying to fuck her casually, but you're not making it crystal clear that you're trying to fuck her casually, you're being indirect, man. If you're giving her any type of hint that you're open to becoming her next long-term boyfriend, you're being indirect. And along with that, like I just said, if you're giving a woman an impression that you have an equal desire and appreciation for her non-sexual companionship as you do her sexual companionship, you're being indirect. Direct, which is my specialty. Again, I'm the godfather of direct verbal game advice and wisdom. That's what Rollo should have said in his book. That's what he should have just, if he was going to bring up my name in his book, he should have said, hey, man, there's a guy I know that I've interacted with who's considered the godfather of direct verbal game advice and wisdom. His name is Alan Roger Currie. If you want to find out more about that, read his books. But in simple terms, I'll read what I have on here. Direct verbal game. When you get women in bed because of your advanced social skills, which contributes to men not being creepy, advanced social skills. Let's pause a little emphasis on that. Advanced social skills. You can't be a socially awkward motherfucker and use direct verbal game. You can't be no corny motherfucker and use direct verbal game. And more specifically, because of verbally bold, straightforward, honesty combined with exceptional. You see that word? Exceptional. You see that word? See that word? Pay attention to that word. Exceptional. Exceptional verbal seduction skills and kinky erotic dirty talk talents. Exceptional. Not average, not below average. Exceptional, motherfuckers. Exceptional. 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 You gotta learn how to be smooth, man. Persuasively charming. Does this, let me see how long this is.
One of the benefits of BDSM, I wish I could cite specifically the article, but there was an article that came out in 2013 that said those that are involved in the BDSM lifestyle have what? They have more romantic passion, more sexual passion, and the biggest thing they said, compared to traditional couples, greater peace of mind. Because each person in the relationship knows their role. You know your role, don't you?
Yes, Daddy.
You know your role, don't you?
Yes, Daddy.
So I love being a sub, Daddy.
I love being a sub, Daddy.
Say it again.
I love being a sub, Daddy.
So I love being a switch, Daddy.
Uh-oh, I got an error, man. Somebody trying to, I played that little video, and now I got an error message saying, we're having connection problems with your, they trying to shut my shit down? I didn't show no nudity in that clip. Let me see, I'm watching it. Okay. So far, I'm still connected. But yeah, as soon as I start playing that clip, all of a sudden some message. They tried to imply that I was playing something inappropriate. Yeah. YouTube Pilot Bureau. Did I sound corny though in that clip? Anything about me sound socially awkward? Huh? So anyway, one of the chapters I read of his, I only read like 4 chapters. I haven't read the whole book. But when he was talking about direct game versus direct girl game, man, most of the shit he said, I totally disagree with. Yeah, he basically tried to act. If I had to use my terminology, like a lot of conventional PUAs try to do, he tried to act like mode 2 was representative of being direct. Yeah, he tried to act like mode 2 was representative of being direct. So that's one of the chapters. Let me see. Yeah, the one chapter I read is if you can say it, I read this chapter, direct versus indirect game. I read this chapter because that's the chapter where he mentions Mode 1. Well, there's actually 2 chapters he mentioned, but that's the main chapter, the creep. What other chapter did I read? I read this chapter, shit test. See, this is conventional PUA talk, keynote. I'm so sick of that term, keynote escalation. That's definitely a conventional PUA term, keynote escalation. I never mentioned anything about, oh, I read this chapter, average men and players. And I don't talk about shit related to no keynote. Number one, as you could have predicted, what have I always said when guys try to criticize Mode 1? What have I said when guys try to criticize Mode 1? Now, anybody know by now, I got 3 variations of Mode 1. I don't have just one variation. I got 3 variations of Mode 1. Going from the most tame to the most explicit. The most tame version of Mode 1 is the version my brother came up with called Mode 1.5. Mode 1.5. Hardly anyone ever goes in on Mode 1.5. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do a podcast or a live stream where they try to, well, no, actually one guy did. I ain't gonna say his name. But there was one guy, I did a response video to him. The one time I had a guy try to criticize Mode 1.5, I had a black male YouTuber. He once tried to say that his criticism was, he said, I don't see much difference between Mode 1.5 and Mode 2. That was his criticism. He said, to me, there's really no difference between Mode 1.5 and Mode 2. And I did a response video. Yes, there is. There's a big difference between Mode 1.5 and Mode 2. In simple terms, Mode 2, I already explained when I was explaining direct versus indirect verbal game. Mode 2 is when you're vague and ambiguous about your sexual desires, interests, and intentions. In other words, when you're Mode 2, you don't make it specifically clear to a woman whether you want long-term sex, short-term sex, monogamous sex, non-monogamous sex, emotions involved, emotions not involved. You don't make none of that shit clear when you're Mode 2. You don't make none of that shit clear. When you're Mode 1.5, you make it clear that you don't want anything long-term, you don't want anything emotionally profound, and you don't want anything strictly monogamous, and you don't want any relationship that's purely platonic. That's the 4 main things you make clear when you're Mode 1.5. You just don't use any profanity or R-rated, X-rated, or triple X-rated language while you're doing it. But that's the 4 things you make clear when you're Mode 1.5. You make it clear you don't want any long-term relationship. You don't want a relationship that's emotionally profound. You don't want a relationship that's strictly monogamous. And you don't want any type of series of interactions that are of a purely platonic nature. So that's the difference between Mode 1.5 and Mode 2. But yeah, I had at least one black male YouTuber. He tried to say there's no real difference between those 2. I think Mode 1.5 is really exactly the same. No. Now, when you're Mode 2, man, you're very vague and ambiguous. You don't give a hint whether your interest is long-term or short-term. You don't give a hint whether you want an emotionally profound relationship or a casual relationship. You don't give a hint whether you want monogamous or non-monogamous sex. You don't give a hint to none of that shit when you Mode 2. So yeah, that's Mode 1.0. Then what I call standard or default Mode 1. Here's my most default example of a standard Mode 1 approach. Standard Mode 1 approach would be if I go up to a woman and I say, so, when would you like to share my company one-on-one? Next week or the week after? That's probably the closest thing I have to a default standard Mode 1 approach. is inviting a woman. I start out by simply inviting a woman to share my company. And it's usually something along the lines of what I said. I'll approach a woman, I'll say, so. I look her dead in the eyes. I always have powerful eye contact. And I say, so, when would you like to share my company one-on-one? Next week or the week after? And I wait for her to respond. And basically, usually what happens in standard mode one is once I say that to a woman, based on her response, I can tell which one of these 5 archetypes she falls into. And I teach my clients through coaching and consultation sessions how to recognize. But yeah, once I use that approach with a woman and she begins to respond, I can tell which one of those 5 archetypes she falls into. Yeah, so as soon as I say, so, when would you like to share my company one-on-one? Next week or the week after? Based on how she responds over the next 2, 3, 4 minutes, I'll be able to tell if that woman's a reciprocator. I'll be able to tell if that woman's a rejected. I'll be able to tell if that woman's a wholesome pretender. I'll be able to tell if that woman's an erotic hypocrite, or I'll be able to tell if that woman's a manipulative time waster. And that plays into my coaching. I coach men how to identify. That's the first objective of mode 1. The first objective of mode 1, particularly standard mode 1, is for you to first identify. Because see, a lot of guys treat all women the same. They're not. Particularly in terms of their verbal communication style and their body language. The combination of their verbal communication style and their body language is always going to be totally different. It's going to fall under one of these 5 categories. Every woman you talk to, as soon as you invite them to share your company, they're going to reveal themselves to either be a reciprocator, a wholesome pretender, an erotic hypocrite, rejecter, or a manipulative time waster. And I know the nuances of each one of those 5 archetypes. I know the nuances of each one of those 5 archetypes at a master level, at a master teacher level. Ain't nobody in the world better than me at identifying them 5 archetypes. Quote me on that. There ain't nobody in the world better than me at identifying them 5 archetypes. Nobody. Go. So that's mode 1. And then my mode. And so my original point was hardly any of my haters and critics ever take too many shots at standard mode 1 or mode 1.5. I say of all the criticism, harsh criticism I've gotten in my approach, only roughly 5% of my criticisms have been directed towards either standard mode 1 or mode 1.5. Here's the version that almost everybody and their mama wants to criticize. Is my more explicit version called mode 1 hardcore. Mode 1 hardcore. Of the 3 variations of mode 1, that's the variation that and essentially, if you read Rollo's book, that's the variation of mode 1 that he attacks. He don't attack standard mode 1 or mode 1.5. He attacks mode 1 hardcore. He attacks mode 1 hardcore. Matter of fact, he has me saying something to a woman that I've never said in my life. That's one of the things that irritated me, man. At least if you're going to quote me as being mode 1 and mode 1 hardcore, at least use an example of something I've actually said to a woman. Not something you assume that I've said or you think I said. Not something you assume that I said or think I said. Let me get to it. Well, first, I'll bring this up, but the typing is so little, you probably won't be able to see this. But one of the 2 chapters he mentions me is his chapter called Decree. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read it verbatim. I ain't going to paraphrase him because I don't want to misquote him. So I'm going to say it verbatim. Okay, it starts in this section called over-sexualizing. Okay, this part I'm gonna read, and again, fair use, as they say, fair use. I have the right to use this as fair use because if there's one time you can read an excerpt from somebody's book during a video live stream is if you're offering a critique or review. So fair use. Over-sexualized, potentially harmful outcome for the creep arises when he watches a dating coach run through a set and then tries to repeat the same behaviors with script with a girl he thinks he might have a chance with. Now, I want to skip through all that. That's too long. Okay, let me start at the bottom here. What's fascinating about the sex conversation creep is that when a woman initiates sexualized conversation, there's no better indicator she's into having sex with you. So let's stop right there. Here's what's interesting to me, and I've heard, I did a video where I attacked this guy about, 3 years ago or so. I find it funny that guys are one-sided and hypocritical when it comes to sexually explicit, straightforward talk about sex. Here's the thing. Have you ever heard a man say that he has a problem with basically a woman being more one hardcore with a man? Huh? Have you ever heard any PUA, dating coach, or whatever, harshly criticize a woman for being more one hardcore with a man about her sexual desires, interests, and intentions? Nope. Whenever I ask men, I say, so if a woman came up to you and straightforwardly said, I would love for you to come back to my place so I can suck your dick, would you go off on it and say, oh my God, that's rude. Oh my God, that's disgusting. Oh my God, what is your problem, woman? Don't you have some class about you? Shit. That's just totally socially inappropriate and disgusting, and you need to have more manners. You have no home training. Have you ever heard of a man having that reaction to a woman? No. And this is, in so many words, this is what Rollo is saying in here. He's basically saying it's okay for a woman to be more one hardcore with a man. He's basically saying he has no problem with a woman being more one hardcore with a man. But he basically goes on to say, oh, here's what is false. Here's this section right here is false. Totally false. He says, remember, women don't decide in the first 5 minutes of meeting a guy if they will have sex with him. Instead, she knows if she won't have sex with him. False, Rollo. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Straight up, quote me. If you're listening now, Rollo, I'm telling you directly, if you're not listening to me right now, somebody quote me to Rollo. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about with that statement you put in there. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Studies and surveys are on my side. So I mention this in almost all my videos and live streams. Studies and surveys and my own informal studies and surveys have proven me to be right. When it comes specifically to casual sex, not relationship, not long-term relationship sex, but when it comes to short-term, non-monogamous, casual sex, women know within 15 minutes or less after they meet you if they want to give you some pussy or not. That is facts. I ain't Alan Roger Currie's own opinion. That is facts. I have never had a woman that I've talked to that has disagreed with that. Not one. Literally not one. Of all the women, hundreds of women I've had conversations with about this subject, I haven't had not one woman disagree with me about that. The only time women need more than 15 minutes to decide if they want to have sex with you or not is if they're leaning towards relationship sex. In other words, they want you to be either their husband, their long-term boyfriend, or at bare minimum, some type of long-term friends with benefits partner. That's the only 3 times it takes a woman more than roughly 15 minutes to decide if she wants to have sex with you. is if she's looking at you as a husband, a potential boyfriend, or at minimum, a potential long-term friends with benefits partner. But when it comes to like, say, like a one-night stand, weekend fling, or some other variation of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex, women know, some women have said they know within 30 seconds after they meet you if they want to give you some pussy or not. They know within 30 seconds after they meet you if they want to give you some pussy or not. And the longest is somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes. And longest somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes. Basically, it's like this. Here's what's going to determine whether they decide that they want to give you some casual sex pussy in the first minute or two, or it takes them more like 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to tell you the difference. If you have everything that a woman wants in a fuck buddy as it relates to this category, looks and masculine sex appeal. Looks and masculine sex appeal. If you have everything that a woman wants in a fuck buddy as it relates to those two categories, women know within like a minute or less after they meet you if they're going to give you some casual sex pussy or not. Literally. If a woman, number one, is interested in casual sex, some women don't do casual sex. These days, most do. If a woman's leaning towards engaging in casual sex with you, the first thing she's going to see, identify, is if you got it going on in the area of looks and masculine sex appeal. If you ain't got it going on in those two areas, at minimum, she's going to be like, At maximum, she's just going to be flat out not interested in having casual sex with you. But at minimum, she's going to be lukewarm, like, But those first two categories is what will usually cause a woman to make a quick decision of whether or not to have casual sex with you. Again, hate to always bring up my scene in high school. When I was in high school, man, women knew as soon as they saw me, they wanted to give me some casual sex pussy. That may sound conceited, but it's the fucking truth. When I was in high school, women knew as soon as they looked at me without having any conversation. These women told me. They knew as soon as they looked at me, they was like, oh, I want to give him some pussy because he's a fine motherfucker. He's fine, he's sexy. I want to give him some pussy. That's how women treated me when I was in high school. They would just look at me. Say I'd be at a party or a basketball game or whatever. Women would look at me and they get that look like, if you know how to read women, you can tell when women size you up physically. They'll look and then at first their eyes will get a little big, like whoa. And then they'll give you this look like, ooh. That I'm telling you, it sounds like I'm ball rubbing, but it was a truth. That's the type of looks I got from women, man. My senior year, man. Women just look at me, they be like, oh shit, he fine. I gotta give him some pussy. So anyway, as far as how quick or how slow it takes for a woman to decide casual sex, we ain't talking about long-term relationship sex. We're talking about specifically casual sex. On these two qualities, quality number one and quality number two, again, I would say women know from those two qualities within the first 2 minutes. They know within the first minute or two after they meet you if they want to give you some pussy. Now, let's say you're not all the way their type in terms of physical appearance, and you're not 100% their type in terms of masculine sex appeal. Or let's say you are their type in those two areas. You might be their type in both these areas. But let's say their social programming and cultural conditioning has led them to believe that casual sex is a bad thing, is bad for their public image, their social reputation, and that they're afraid of being labeled a slut, which is why you have, again, that's why you have wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites. That's why you have wholesome pretenders and erotic, particularly wholesome pretenders. That's why you have wholesome pretenders. Now, some women, that they might meet you and they think you have the physical appeal and masculine sex appeal, but they're like, ooh, if I let him fuck me, he might tell all his male friends that I'm nothing but a two-bit slut. So when a woman has those type of resistance, reservations, reluctance, that's when this comes into play. Mouthpiece. That's when this comes into play. That's exactly when your mouthpiece comes into play, man. Anytime a woman has any degree, as I say in my book, Who Said Again? Who Said Again is my book about verbal seduction, kinky dirty talk, understanding women's sexually duplicitous nature, which most men don't understand. And that's why they're against direct. Yeah, I find the main guys who criticize direct game is guys who don't understand the sexually duplicitous nature of women. They don't. I've said that thousands of times. Number one guys who have the harshest criticisms of direct verbal game is guys who don't fully understand the sexually duplicitous nature of women. They don't understand the sexually duplicitous nature of women. They really don't. They'll try to tell you that they do, but they really don't. They don't understand sexually duplicity. But anytime a woman's giving you some degree of resistance, indifference, reluctance, that's where your mouthpiece comes in. You got to be a master of verbal seduction and erotic dirty talk, like I am. Anytime a woman's like on the fence about having casual sex with you, in other words, like 50 to 60% of her is like against it, but 40 to 50% of her is kind of in for having casual sex with you. The number one thing that's going to determine whether she ultimately gives you a yay or a nay is your mouthpiece. Is your mouthpiece. See, I don't have to pretend like I want to be a woman's next long-term boyfriend or future husband to get some pussy from her. Because my mouthpiece is bad to the motherfucker. My pussy, my mouthpiece is bad to the motherfucker when it comes to getting pussy. Period. When it comes to getting pussy. Not everybody has a bad mouthpiece, man. A lot of my clients do now. I do. A lot of my clients do. They don't have to lie to women, be disingenuous and misleading, manipulator, and all that shit. They don't have to be. Again, there's a lot of this stuff I just talked about in my very last live stream. See, guys who ain't got no mouthpiece, who are lacking in the looks department and lacking in the mouthpiece department, this is what they got to result to. They got to result to this, category 3. They got to result to this, transactional sex, or they got to, in extreme cases, result to this, combination of physical aggressiveness and drugs and alcohol. If you got to result to category 3, category 4, or category 5, then that means, what that means in real blunt terms is you're lacking when it comes to looks and masculine sex appeal, and you're lacking when it comes to your mouthpiece. You're lacking when it comes to your fucking mouthpiece. When you got it going on in the way of looks, masculine sex appeal, mouthpiece, you don't need to be a liar or a manipulator. But anyway, let me go back to this thing. But I wanted to point out, yeah, that section he had is a fucking, that's an invalid statement. When he says, remember, women don't decide in the first 5 minutes of meeting guy if they will have. Now, if he said, remember, women don't decide in the first 5 minutes of meeting guy if they will have relationship sex with a man, that would be a true and valid statement. If he specifically said relationship sex, but casual sex, I'm telling you, man, all women know when they first meet you, man, within 15 minutes or less after they meet you, if they want you to be a fuck buddy. When it comes to being a fuck buddy, women know within 15 minutes or less after they meet you. I just talked about this on my live stream on Sunday. Now let's get to the part where this is where he brings me in. Game sometimes reinforces the idea that a guy needs to establish a sexual context with a woman from the opening, but the creep doesn't understand the artistry and nuance that applies to this. My old friend, I find that laughable. He says, my old friend. He should have said, instead of old, it should say former. That's what it should say. It should say, my former friend, Alan Roger Currie. That's what it should say, honestly. Real talk. Right there, it should say, my former friend, because me and him ain't cool no more. Me and Rollo ain't cool. The last time I would say me and Rollo was cool probably was sometime in maybe spring or summer 2020. That was probably the last time me and him were still, you know, at least cordial and respectful towards each other. It was probably the spring, summer 2020. But over the last roughly year and a half, I ain't been cool with Rollo, man. Because he be taking too many jabs at Mo One. He's taking jabs at Mo One, and he's allowed other people to take jabs at Mo One. Even though, again, this is a guy that in 2019 actually endorsed my Mo One approach as the wave of the future. Again, I did a video. I showed it earlier for those who came late to the stream. He did a video saying that over the next 10, 15, 20 plus years, he said because of the Me Too movement era and a lot of false invalid sexual assault charges against men, date rape charges against men, sexual harassment charges against men. He said, I believe the number one verbal communication style that most men are going to have to adapt over the next 10, 15, 20 plus years is Alan Roger Currie's Mo One approach. So it could prevent themselves from being a victim of false invalid charges. And speaking of that, well, let me hold off on what I'm about to say about one of the biggest misinterpretations about Mo One. I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. But let me continue. My old friend, Alan Roger Currie, is a big proponent of straight up, I want to fuck you. Are you down? Okay. Okay. Let me pause right there. This is his supposed representation of me being Mo One hardcore. Okay. Mo One hardcore. He says, I go up to women and say, I want to fuck you. Are you down? If you're a long-time supporter of mine, you're a current or former client of mine, you're someone who's heard me in person talk dirty to women, or you heard me on audio clip talking dirty to women. When has anybody on fucking planet Earth ever heard me go up to a woman and say, I want to fuck you, are you down? Now, I realize in his partial defense that maybe he was just trying to use the example that he felt represented the essence of what I say, the essence of what I might say if I'm Mo One hardcore. But if you analyze that statement, I want to fuck you, are you down? Okay. Let me go back to I ain't been in my chat room in a long time. And moderators, let me know if I've missed some super chats. Okay. What's wrong with that approach? Get at least one person in the chat room. Tell me. Here we go. Here's one thing. Yeah. No, someone shouldn't talk about something unless they truly understand. Thank you, Anacon San. Thank you, Anacon San. Thank you, Anacon San. Thank you, Anacon San. That was my number one sentiment when I saw that he mentioned my name and was talking about Mo One. Nobody, not only just Rollo, nobody should be talking about Mo One in a book if they don't thoroughly understand my Mo One approach. Now, y'all know that I've gone in a lot, starting with 2018, I've gone in a lot on the younger dating coach named Alpha Male Strategy. Y'all know I've had my beef with Alpha Male Strategies. Sometimes I've given him a few compliments, other times I've criticized him. But here's one thing I'll give Alpha Male Strategy. As much as I've criticized, here's one thing I'll give Alpha Male Strategies. He talked about direct verbal game in his 2 dating advice books. But if you notice, he never mentioned my name. He never mentioned Alan Roger Currie. when he talked about direct verbal game. Never mentioned my name, and he never mentioned my specific brand, the Mode 1 approach. He never mentioned my name, and he never mentioned the Mode 1 brand. He just called it direct method. He said, this is why I'm not in favor of the direct method. Yeah. Oh, direct approach. Now, he was mainly referring to my Mode 1 method, but he didn't specifically say Mode 1. He has a chapter 65 in his second dating advice book called Why I'm So Against the Direct Approach, which is actually my secondary brand name. You know, I don't know if people know, you know, that's a registered trademark of mine. Most people don't know that. Yeah, that's actually, as of 2019, that's a registered trademark of mine. Other than Mode 1, direct approach dating and direct approach dating coaching. In other words, no other dating coach or PUA can use the phrase direct approach dating advice. That's my shit. That's a registered trademark of mine. Well, I registered that in 2019. Had to pay like $3,000 for it. Yep. Yeah, I'm the only dating coach who can use these phrases: direct approach dating advice, direct approach dating coaching, or just direct approach dating, period. If you see at the end of my thing, you'll see a thing that has the R in the circle, which stands for registered trademark. Yeah, I own that. Anyway, I was going to say, I give Alpha Male Straight some pub. He kind of went after Mode 1 in both his books, but he never called me out by name or used my brand. Rollo is using my name and my brand. He is actually on the borderline of going into the area of defaming my brand. He's on the borderline of going in the area of defaming my brand because he don't know what the fuck he's talking about with Mode 1. He don't know what the fuck he's talking about. So first, let's go back to this comment. I want to fuck you. I asked the people in the chat room, what's wrong with that comment? I don't see an answer, or maybe I missed it, but there you go. Here go one people. Mitchell Edmonds II. Thank you. Thank you, Mitchell Edmonds II. Thank you. I never ask a woman for pussy. I never, ever, 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 ever ask a woman for pussy. I never, ever, 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 ever ask a woman for pussy. So that example is way the fuck off, saying that I go up to women and say, I want to fuck you. Are you down? I would say if I had to split it in half, the part where he says I've gone up to women and say I want to fuck you, that ain't totally off base. I have said that to women. So I ain't gonna say that's totally off base. But the part about asking the question, are you down? I never ask a woman, are you down to give me some pussy? I let women know that I either want to fuck them, or in most cases, I tell them I'm going to fuck you. That's what I usually say. There probably has been a few times I said I want to fuck you too. But mostly when I talk to women, this is what I usually say to one degree, one way or another. I say to women, damn, you're attractive, you're sexy. We need to hook up in the near future because I'm going to fuck you. That's what I'll say. I'm going to fuck you. I don't say, hey, would you like to have sex with me? Are you down to have sex with me? That's like asking a woman's permission. I don't do that shit. I let women know that, say, I don't care. This is my thing. I don't care about their interest in a nutshell until they tell me, of course. But before they tell me what their interest is or lack of interest is, say, here's the deal with me, man. I don't give a fuck about a woman's interest. That's what guys need to understand about my one. I don't give a fuck about a woman's interest when I'm first starting to talk to her. All I care about is if she knows my interests. I care 10 times more about if a woman knows what my specific interests, desires, interests, and intentions are, more so than I care about whether she's interested or not interested. That comes later. Main thing I care about is that she knows my interest. Get that? And here's why. And see, this is another thing I could tell by reading Rollo's commentary about me, that he, as well as most people, don't understand and never understand. And I'm going to take some of the blame, not all, but some of the blame for this. Here's what I told you guys multiple times since I've been on YouTube. And even before I got on YouTube, I used to explain this to guys. But guys, a matter of fact, okay, I just did a live stream. My next to last live stream or the live stream before that. My next to last live stream or the live stream before that. I talked about how I heard from this frat brother of mine who I used to go to Indiana University with. And he called me. And he said, ARC, man, I owe you an apology. I said, why? He said, man, he heard this interview I did with this guy named Dr. Rick Wallace. It's here on YouTube, Dr. Rick Wallace. And he said, I was listening to that interview, man. He said, wow, man, all this time I got Mo 1 wrong. I said, really? He said, well, number one, I saw you mention during this live stream that some of your frat brothers at Indiana University were critics of your Mo 1 approach initially until they saw that it worked. He said, I think I might have been one of those frat brothers of yours. And I said, I don't remember you being one of my critics or haters of Mo 1. He said, yeah, I can't remember either, but he said, something makes me feel like I was. He said, in case I was, he said, I'm going to give you a 30-plus-year-old apology. And then we laughed about it. Then he said, one thing that was interesting about that interview, Alan, I always had the wrong impression of Mo 1. He said, it took me this long to fully understand Mo 1. I said, well, what was your impression of Mo 1? He said, honestly, I thought Mo 1 was your attempt at just basically using X-rated and triple X-rated language to try to get as many women in bed as you can. He said, that's basically what I thought your angle was. Using X-rated and triple X-rated language to try to get as many women in bed in the shortest span of time possible. But he said, when I listened to your interview with Dr. Rick Wallace, he said, it made me understand that Mo 1 is actually more about, wait, that's the wrong one. Where is it? He said, your Mo 1 is actually more about helping man identify manipulative time wasters. He said, man, I hate to confess this, but he said, man, I never really realized that until I was listening to that interview. And he said, now it makes more sense to me. He said, now it makes more sense to me. If you go back, if you see me looking for something, I'm looking for my, wait, hold on one second. Okay. You know what this is? You know what this is? This is my first copyrighted version of Mo 1. Somebody has offered to pay me over $1,000 for this book. Seriously. I've got offered over $1,000 to be paid for this book. I want $1 million. But this is not my very first version, period. I actually had a few versions, at least 3 or 4 versions before this. This is my first copyrighted version of Mo 1. 1997. My first copyrighted version was created in November of 1997. I say, what is that? So 1997. That's definitely over 20 years ago. That's 25 years ago, almost. In November, that would be 25 years ago. I wrote this version of Mo 1. My first copyrighted version. I read this on one video. Even going back to this version, I tell guys, And see, this is where my brother, I've told y'all sometimes, my older brother, where's my older brother? Steven. Without getting a too long story, my older brother, man, who I'm gonna miss, man. Oh, I shouldn't have brought that up. I might get emotional right now. I'm great. I think some people know now. I'm going to make a move. I'm moving from one residence to another, and I'm not gonna be close to my brother anymore. I'm gonna miss him. But we've gotten into some, believe it or not, me and my brother have had some heated discussions and debates related to my books. Like, number one, my brother, he's never been a fan of Mo 1 Hardcore. That's one reason why he came with Mo 1.5. That's his preferred variation of Mo 1. He don't like Mo 1 Hardcore. He don't even really like my book, Who Said Again. He's not the biggest fan of that book. Nope. My brother's not the biggest fan of Who Said Again. Anyway, one thing he was critical, and I'm going to have to bring up a former PUA's name involved in this. And I even say why I've contributed to why some people have misinterpretation of Mo 1. See, from the get-go, that's what Mo 1 was about. And this is what most guys don't get. Mo 1, getting laid was always a secondary thing for me. That was always a secondary thing for me. Mo 1 is more about preventing women from wasting your fucking time. That was the initial objective of being Mo 1 with women. It was not necessarily to get them in bed, but to prevent the women who were not interested in having sex with you from wasting your fucking time and money. And there's a section here. This is my 1997. I think it's in the introduction. Okay. Okay, here's what I say. Let me read a couple excerpts. I hate phony small talk. Absolutely cannot stand it. Small talk is generally defined as any conversation that you engage in primarily, if not specifically, for the purpose of entertainment and amusement or to simply pass the time. It is conversation that is, for the most part, trivial, inconsequential, and has very little bearing on the manner in which you truly evaluate someone's behavior and or character. It was my strong disdain for trivial, phony small talk that led to my desire for a more effective and time-efficient means of communicating my thoughts to people. I don't like deceiving people. I don't like manipulating people. I don't like wasting people's time, and I for damn sure don't like for people to bullshit me or cause me to waste time. Hence the birth of my Mode 1 approach philosophy. Where's the part where I say it's not about it? Okay, here's the excerpt. Let's get one thing clear right away. Exhibiting Mode 1 behavior will not transform you overnight into this super successful ladies' man or Casanova or notorious womanizer. Improving your success with getting women in bed is more so a byproduct and fringe benefit. Let me repeat that. Improving your success with getting women in bed is more so a byproduct and fringe benefit of exhibiting Mode 1 behavior rather than its primary objective or specific purpose. I cannot guarantee you that if you follow all of the advice in this book, that you're going to start getting laid more frequently. Mode 1 behavior is primarily a defensive strategy for preventing women from manipulating you, misleading you, playing head games with you, wasting your time, and leaving you feeling used, angry, pissed off, and egotistically frustrated. That's my 1997 version. And see, what I brought in my brother, and I'm not going to disparage this other guy I'm about to mention too much, because he did do some things that benefited me, and that's Sasha Day Game. Most people are familiar with Sasha Day Game. Sasha Day Game, here's the credit to give him a balanced opinion. When it comes to the number one person who helped my international popularity and notoriety blow up, I will always give credit mostly to Sasha Day Game. So that's the number one compliment I will give Sasha Day Game. He was the one who helped me become a household name in the worldwide manosphere internationally, starting with 2010. But here's what I would say on the more critical end, among a few things. And my brother noticed it first, man. I mean, one time I did one of his direct dating summits, and my brother watched some of it. And I'll be paraphrasing some of my brother's words, but he was like, bro, he said, I don't like your collaboration with Sasha. I said, really? He said, no. So I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I don't like your collaboration with Sasha. He said, here's one reason I don't like it. He said, man, I feel like Sasha has been trying to persuade you to market Mo One as more of a get laid quick in 24 hours or less PUA type scheme and gimmick. And he said, that ain't what Mo One is about. You know that, and I know that as your brother. He said, that ain't what Mo One is about. But he said, because since you've been collaborating with Sasha, man, you've been almost kind of marketing Mo One as this like kind of PUA, get laid quick type of scheme and gimmick and technique, where men gonna think if every woman they Mo One, they're gonna end up in bed with them like within 24 hours or less, or within 72 hours or less. He said, that ain't what Mo One is about, man. Mo One is about preventing women from being able to employ manipulative head games against you. And he said, since you've been collaborating with Sasha, I never really heard you talk about that extensively. And it was the truth. At the time, I didn't necessarily see it as like my brother did, but it's the truth. Mo One is not a get laid quick scheme. It is not. Getting laid was never the number one objective of Mo One. Mo One is to prevent manipulative time wasters from wasting your time and money. That's why I wrote this article for O'Shea Duke Jackson's site, The Negro Manosphere. When did I write this? Back in July 2017. That's why I wrote this article. This article was to explain that. That's why it says man's number one priority. It don't say number two priority. It don't say number three priority. It says a man's number one priority is identifying and weeding out manipulative time wasters. Now, going back to Rollo stuff. The way he talks about Mo One, he makes Mo One seem like a PUA get laid quick scheme. That's what he makes it seem like. He makes it seem like a PUA get laid quick scheme. That ain't what Mo One is about, man. Again, as I said in the 1997 version of Mo One, getting laid is a byproduct and fringe benefit of Mo One. In my very last live stream, I was talking about verbal seduction story number one, and we'll say it again. That's my most well-known verbal seduction story out of the 6. If you remember during verbal seduction story number one, and we'll say it again, when I just talked about it last lecture, how I got angry at one point. I went out my friend's apartment to cool down outside. And then that's where I transitioned from being first from Mo 2 to Mo 4, and then from Mo 4 to Mo 1. When I was talking to that woman outside of that apartment building, which would you say was more of my objective, if you remember the story? Was my number one objective to get laid, or was my number one objective to prevent her from wasting my motherfucking time? Was my objective to get laid? Now, you can say in general, I had both objectives. In general, I would say I had both objectives. But if I had to lean towards which was more important between the two, which was more important between the two? Me getting laid or me preventing her from wasting my motherfucking time? Yep. That's what I told her, man. When we were outside my friend's apartment, the verbal selection story number 1. That's basically what I told her. I didn't see when I was being mode 2, that's when I was concentrating on getting laid and I was failing miserably. But once I got outside of my friend's apartment building, my main objective was to prevent her from wasting my time. My attitude was like, bitch, I know that you know if you want to give me some pussy or not. I know for a fact right now that you know whether or not you want to give me some pussy. And I was basically like, tell me either way. But I said, in summary, I can't remember my exact words, but I basically told her, the one thing I'm not going to let you do for the remainder of this evening is waste my motherfucking time with bullshit conversation. I'm not going to allow you to do that shit. And since then, I don't allow any woman to do that. Like some of you clowns out here. I don't allow women to waste my fucking time with goofy, trivial, bullshit conversation. Only weak, verbal cowards allow that shit. Yeah, I said it. Quote me on it. Only punks allow that shit. I don't allow that shit. When my objective is casual sex, my attitude is, bitch, are we fucking or are we not? Now I'm more smooth and seductive about it. I'm angry right now, so it sounds angry and loud. I'm more smooth and seductive about it. Trust me, I know how to be smooth and seductive. But in essence, my underlying attitude with every woman I deal with, when my objective is casual sex with, is, bitch, you know whether or not you want to give me some pussy. You know you do. I ain't got time for women to be wasting my fucking time, man. I don't even want my time wasted even if I get the pussy. See, that's where I'm different from a lot of guys. Most guys don't want their time wasted if they're not going to get the pussy. See, the difference with me, I don't want my time wasted even if I don't want to invest 3 hours to get some pussy when I feel like I should be able to get pussy in 15 or 20 minutes. That's how I am. I don't want to waste 3 hours talking to a woman just to get some casual sex pussy. Now, a lot of you motherfuckers out here, y'all down with that shit and more power to you. I ain't down with that shit, man. I'm not going to invest a number of hours, days, weeks. I don't care if a woman is a fucking Victoria's Secret model. I could give a fuck. I've been in bed with 7, 8s, and 9s. I could give a fuck. I don't care if people always be like, well, if she real fine, though, I don't mind spending a bunch of hours and days if she real super fine. I could give a fuck. I could give a fuck. Now, again, when it comes to my interest in having a long-term relationship, that's the only time I don't mind investing some degree of time, getting to know a woman, even some degree of money, usually not much, but at least a minimum amount of money, if my interest is a long-term relationship like with my current wife. But again, man, for strictly casual sex, nah, dude. If I can't get pussy quickly, easily, inexpensively, I don't want it. I don't care how fine the bitch is. She could be a 9.5 on a scale from 1 to 10. I could give a fuck. I'm not jumping through no hoops for a bitch. I'm not whining and dining no bitch. I'm not doing that shit. Y'all can choose to do that. I'm not doing it. Now, let's go back to Rollo shit. So that was my thing I want to point out before I continue with this excerpt from Rollo's book. I could tell he don't understand it. And like one of my, I think it was Mitchell Edmond or somebody said, he shouldn't be talking about Mode 1 by name if he doesn't thoroughly understand it. He shouldn't. He shouldn't be talking about Mo 1. He is giving people, now people who are familiar with me and Mo 1, they're not going to be bothered by this book. It's not going to change their opinion one way or the other. But let's say somebody was reading this book and they never heard of Alan Roger Currie and they never heard of the Mo 1 approach. Like they never ever heard of me. This is going to give them a misleading and fucked up impression of what Mo 1 is about. This is going to give them a very misleading and fucked up impression about what Mo 1 is about. So again, my old friend, Alan Roger Currie, is a big proponent, straight up, I want to fuck you or you down, style directed. This game strategy can be effective, but it does promote the idea that a guy can presume a sexual context with any woman from the outset. See, I don't agree with that, how he wrote that. I don't agree with that. See, see, okay, I got to stop right here, man. Just on that little comment. It sounds like he's saying that if guys choose to use direct verbal game, they're assuming that every woman they talk to is going to be down to give them some pussy. Now, in one respect, I don't think you should approach a woman and initiate a conversation unless you feel like, unless you're fairly confident that the woman you're talking to is just as interested in having sex with you as you are in having sex with her. But again, related to what I just talked about, for me, one of the reasons I'm straightforward is not, in real simple terms, using my archetypes again, I don't just use Mo 1 with the assumption that every woman I meet and talk to is going to be a reciprocator. In real simple terms, I don't talk to women, every woman, with the assumption that they're going to be a reciprocator. I use Mo 1 to find out which one of these 5 archetypes a woman is. That's why I use Mo 1. I use Mo 1 to find out which one of these 5 archetypes a woman is. See, this is what I do. This is going back to my 3 variations of Mo 1. If I feel like I have no idea whether or not I'm talking to a reciprocator, a wholesome pretender, an erotic hypocrite, a rejecter, or a time waster, that's when I'm going to use standard Mo 1 or Mo 1.5. If I'm unsure of which of the 5 archetypes of the woman I'm talking to, that's when I'm going to use standard Mo 1 or Mo 1.5. If I'm like 90 to 99% certain that the woman I'm talking to is either a reciprocator, a wholesome pretender, or an erotic hypocrite, and I feel like there's very little chance that they're a rejecter or a time waster, that's when I'm going to be Mo 1 hardcore. That's when I'm going to be Mo 1 hardcore. If I'm talking to a woman, like remember I was just early in this live stream, I was talking about my senior in high school. And I talked about how the looks I used to get from women, what I call come fuck me look. That's what it's known as, a come fuck me look. Or another variation would be a, ooh, I think you so fine look. I got beyond high school, I got some of those looks too from time to time. But if you're talking about getting that type of look on like a week-to-week basis, the number one year I got that type of looks was my senior in high school, where women would look at me like, oh. See, now, if I see a woman, let's say I see a woman looking at me, I'm at a party or something, I see a woman looking at me like, oh. You think I'm going to waste time with 15 minutes of small talk with that woman? Really? Do you really think I'm going to waste like 10, 15 minutes talking about her favorite foods and her favorite movies? Fuck no. I'm going to go up to that woman and say, I saw you looking at me. I bet your pussy getting wet right now. I bet your pussy is wet right now, ain't it? That would be Alan Roger Currie, be a more one hardcore. If a woman gave me that type of look before I approach her, like, ooh, you fine. I'm going to go right up to her and be like, your pussy is getting wet right now, ain't it? I'm going to be all up in her ear. I'm going to say, your pussy getting wet, ain't it? You want me to please that pussy, don't you? You can't wait to feel my hard dick in that pussy. Now looking at, I'm whispering in her ear, and then I lean back to look her in the eye. Can't wait to feel my dick in your pussy. And she gonna start giggling, acting shy and blushing and shit. And bottom line, I'm gonna end up fucking her. Because she already gave me the fucking look. See, that's when I'm mainly mode one hardcore. I'm mainly mode one. I'm not gonna go into all the details like I do in a coaching session, but in a nutshell, here are the main women I'm mode one hardcore with, as opposed to standard mode one or mode 1.5. When a woman starts off giving me some type of flirtatious vibe, if I can tell by the way a woman is looking at me and she has some semblance of flirtatious vibe, that's number one time I'm gonna automatically be mode one hardcore. Number two, if a woman is wearing something that I think is just obviously designed to grab men's attention, real short, tight mini skirt that highlights her ass, blouse highlights her butt. Basically, I know she's trying to get attention from a dude like me. I'm gonna be mode one hardcore. Woman touch on me while I'm talking to her. If she becomes touchy-feely with me in any kind of way, I'm gonna be mode one hardcore. My rough estimates over the course of my life before I got married, starting with the age of 21, I would say of all the women I've had casual sex with, I would say roughly 35% of the women I've approached and ultimately had casual sex with, I was mode one hardcore. About 60% I was standard mode one, and about 5% I was mode 1.5. Yep. Now I'll say 30% mode one, 35% rough estimate mode one hardcore, 60% standard mode one. So anyway, so let me go back now. But yeah, I disagree with that comment. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like he was saying that if guys use the right game, they're going to assume that all women they approach are reciprocators. No, that's the whole point of mode one, is to talk to a woman long enough to let you determine if the woman, which one of those five categories. Now he says, continue. That's not what Alan's mode one tactics teach. Well, I'll give him credit for saying that. That's not what Alan's mode one, but it is what some guys misinterpret it as. I'm not going to go in on that comment. That's actually a fairly valid comment. He's saying that how guys interpret mode one to be is not always in line with how I teach it to be, which is actually a very true statement. That's actually a very true statement. Yeah, a lot of people, again, the biggest thing is guys think mode one is some kind of get laid quick scheme, and it's not. It's more about preventing a woman, a manipulative time waster, from wasting your fucking time. Anyway, when a creep tries to drop hints about sex, I don't believe in the hint shit. I'll tell you straight up. That's what's commonly known as sexual innuendo. Sexual innuendo. It basically falls under vague and ambiguous. A lot of mode 2 guys, they use sexual innuendo. When you're giving a woman a hint. See, women who are really manipulative, they know how to take advantage of you when you use just sexual innuendo. That don't mean shit. Can you get laid using sexual innuendo? Yes. Will sexual innuendo prevent you from being exploited and manipulated by a manipulative time waster? Hell the fuck no. Hell the fuck no. No, it will not. When a creep tries to drop hints about sex or attempts to get personal information in a blunderingly obvious way, see, I'm glad he used the word blunderingly. See, I never let a woman know I wanted to fuck her in a blunderingly, obvious way. He's beating around the bush hoping that he'll pass her sex test. If a creep fails, any attempt at, hey girl, are you down to fuck, and presuming to sell is a recipe for creepy harassment. Well, I also won't totally disagree with that assertion. I said that when I was talking about that grocery store story. about the dude in the grocery store. What he's basically describing in that paragraph is that the guy actually tried to pitch it, shoot his bid after she already rejected him. Why the fuck would you do that? When a less than proficient, less than arousing beta adopts this direct but not directness, he risks being perceived as creepy or a harasser. The obvious retort for a mature, socially savvy man is, well, no guy should presume anything. There needs to be some kind of rapport. There go that word. There go that word. You know I don't believe in that shit for casual sex. Do not believe in that shit. But I ain't going to rehash all my previous video. I don't believe in that indirect verbal game concept of building rapport. Remember, we're talking about guys who in large part don't get it. They don't know they're being creepy. There was another part in here. Well, I think he mentioned my name. Well, it's funny. Here's what's interesting about the rest of this chapter. He talks about two types. He talks about at least two or maybe three or four different types of creep. The part he included me on was the guy who's too quick to get sexual creep. The too quick to get sexual creep. And I'm going to say this again, man. Creepiness has nothing to do with if you're talking about sex or not. It really doesn't. Whether or not a woman perceives you as being creepy has nothing to do with whether or not you're talking about sex. Hey, let me go to the chat room. Hey, moderators, let me know if I missed the super chat. I see a lot of comments. I don't want to just take time to highlight just regular comments. But if somebody super chat, I don't want to, I'm going to scroll back up. Damn. Well, I guess not. Since that last one I mentioned. But yeah, man. What I was going to say, I already said it, but I'm going to reiterate it. Yeah, the creepiness factor has very little, if anything, to do with whether or not you're talking about sex or not. Like, again, that guy in the grocery store, he never talked about sex with the woman, but you could tell he wanted to fuck her. If you were watching the interaction, you could tell he wanted to fuck her, but he wasn't saying it. That's actually what contributed to him looking creepy. Women who wear outfits like that, like the outfit this woman had on in the grocery store, she had on this tight, form-fitting, like suede jumpsuit, and she had a really built body. She had nice-sized tits. She had her midriff showing, her waistline showing, and then she had on these, like, her pants almost looked like leggings, and she had a really nice, round, big, she was a white girl, but she had ass like a thick black woman. Again, what brothers call a pog, fat ass white girl. That's what she was. She was a pog. And but yeah, man, creepy comes with your lack of confidence when you're talking to a woman. Your eye contact is not powerful or confident. Your verbal delivery is not confident. It's full of a bunch of hesitations and uhs and shit. You're trying to talk about it's like you're almost going out of your way to talk about everything but fucking, which a lot of guys think prevents them from looking like, a disrespectful asshole, but it really makes you look like a creep, man. It really makes you look like a creep, man. Again, man, I'm in X-rated, triple X-rated with literally thousands of women in my life. I ain't never had no woman call me creepy, ever. That's real talk. I ain't never, ever, ever had a woman describe my Mode 1 hardcore approach as creepy. The biggest comment I get on is bold as fuck. I was women the first day, most women usually say, they usually say something along the lines of, damn, you bold as fuck. You bold. The most rude comment I've gotten about my Mo One Hardcore approach is that the most negative comment I've gotten about my Mo One Hardcore approach is that it's rude. But over half of the women that called me rude, I ended up fucking them or getting my dick sucked by. Y'all remember, I ain't gonna tell the whole story, but y'all remember the story about when I was at a house party in California and I was Mo One Hardcore with this woman and she went off on me for about 10, 15 minutes, said I had no class, said I had no home training. She called me an asshole, called me a jerk, had all these criticism insults. What happened? 45 minutes to an hour later, that woman was in her SUV sucking my dick. And I was slapping my dick all on her face in retaliation for her criticizing me. Slap my dick all on her fucking face. Sure did. Just like I did Woman in Verbal Seduction story number 1. Y'all heard the story on the audiobook. That's what I do when women talk shit to me and then they turn around and give me the pussy. I take my dick and slap them all on their face with my fucking dick. I slapped that bitch all up on her face with my dick and made her apologize and made her call herself a bitch. I said, say, I was a bitch towards you, sir. She said, I was a bitch towards you, sir. I said, say it again, bitch. She was like, I was a bitch towards you, sir. I was acting like a pretentious, prudish bitch. I said, you goddamn right. Well, then put my dick back in your mouth. Yeah, I take enjoyment out of reminiscing on that shit. I talked shit to her, made her apologize. I said, bitch, put my dick back in your mouth so I can come in your mouth. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, that's how Alan Roger Currie roll. You're going to throw all them criticism and insults with me and then think that when I start fucking you, I'm not going to talk shit to you? Any erotic hypocrite I've ever fucked in my life, because they initially criticized me, insulted me, acted like a pretentious and or prudish bitch. Once I got a position for them to suck my dick or I fucked them, I talk mad shit to their fucking ass. Again, reference Verbal Seduction story number 1 and say it again. That's what happened with that woman. I made her call herself all kinds of bitch. She actually voluntarily, the woman from Verbal Seduction story number 1, if you remember, she at one point, without me provoking her to, number 1, she just started calling me sir on her own. I talked about that at the 21 convention. She just started calling me sir. A lot of women who call me sir, I would tell them to call me sir. She just as soon as I became more dominant with her, she started calling me sir. Secondly, at one point, while she was sucking my dick, she said, something to the effect of, earlier I was acting like a bitch, but I guess now I'm your obedient good bitch. That's what she said about herself. She said, earlier I was acting like a bitch, and I'm sorry for that. And now I'm your obedient good bitch. And I said, you damn right you are. Then I said, put my dick back in your mouth. So my point was, creepy ain't got nothing to do with how quickly, how straightforwardly, or explicitly you talk about sex. If you're a motherfucker that's reasonably handsome, and even more importantly, you got a persuasively charming, verbally smooth, verbally seductive mouthpiece, which is what a lot of my coaching is all about. Man, you can talk about sex with a woman in the first 15 to 30 seconds of conversation. She ain't gonna look at you no creep. But how you talk has to be congruent with who you really are, though. Thank you, Brother Carter. Yeah, that's first super chat I got a long time. I appreciate it. See, matter of fact, you remember when the brother tried to come after me? What's his name? The Saint in the Center. Where is this? I think his real name is Marquette Devon Burton. I can't find his picture. This guy. His pseudonym is the Saint in the Sinner. His real name is Marquise Devon Burton. He came after me about a year ago, a little over a year ago. Now, if you paid attention to the live stream where he called himself Criticize Mo One, even though he gave me respect later in on my community page, here's what you had to listen closely to Satan the Sinner. I would almost loosely compare him to some of Rollo's passages to do with me in Direct Variable Game. This is what Satan the Sinner basically did. On the positive end, he gave me my respect individually. I don't remember the exact words, so I'm going to be paraphrasing, but he basically said, I don't have any doubts that Alan Roger Currie can pull off Mo 1 and Mo 1 Hardcore. Because he said that type of verbal style is congruent with who he is. What he basically went on to say is that I don't think a lot of you nervous, non-confident nerds and geeks out here can pull off Mo 1 and definitely Mo 1 Hardcore. That's who's going to have the problem. Not Alan Roger Currie. He know what he doing. But there's a lot of you nerds and geeks who don't have the personality, the balls and backbone, the alphaness that's congruent with that type of verbal communication style. And that's not altogether wrong what he said. See, and that's what determines if you can get away with talking to women about fucking quickly or if you got to delay the shit. See, when you're a motherfucker like me, if you're a verbally smooth motherfucker, man, I've talked about fucking in the first 5 seconds of a conversation and still ended up getting a pussy. Because I'm a smooth motherfucker, man. I mean, just real talk. I'm a smooth motherfucker. Everything about my body language is congruent with me being Mo 1 and Mo 1 Hardcore. I don't go up to no woman looking all nervous like, excuse me, can I put my cock in your mouth? Don't hit me. Oh, can I fuck you sometime? Oh my God, don't hit me. No, I'm all up in a woman like, yeah, you know you want some of this dick. You know you want some of this dick. You know you want me to pull your hair, slap that ass. You know you want. What are you talking about? You know you want some of this dick. So yeah, the creepy shit. Let me find one other part. There was 2 or 3 parts he mentioned my Mo 1. Okay. Okay, he says, before we go further, let's dispel myth here first. Direct game is not just Mo 1 style. In your face sexual propositions. Real direct game openers are far more benign. Benign means like more subtle, more gentle, you know, that type of thing. And see, this relates to that guy I was talking about named Yad, man. See, what he says right here is the same thing that guy Yad tried to say back in 2010. See, a lot of indirect guys, they think if you just give a woman a straightforward compliment, that you're being direct. I don't consider that direct. This guy, yeah. He was the first one I heard in 2010 that tried to say the same thing Rollo says in this. He says, like, this is what he calls direct. Hi, I saw you from over there. You seem pretty interesting. What's your name? Rollo literally believes that that's a direct opener. Man, that ain't direct. I'll say it, not in my book. That ain't direct. That is not a direct opener, man. Because what about that opener says to a woman, I find you attractive, sexy, and I ultimately want to fuck you? What about that opener says anything like that? It don't even suggest that you want a woman to share your company. Like, again, when I use my default Mo 1 approach, I might not get sexually explicit too quick when I'm default Mo 1, but at minimum, I let a woman know immediately that I want her to share my company. How is that direct? Hi, I saw you from over there. You seem pretty interesting. What's your name? Man, At best, that's mode 2 like a motherfucker. That ain't mode 1. That's mode 2. And I don't consider mode 2 direct. Mode 2 is indirect. Mode 2 is indirect. Another example he gives. Hi, I don't have a lot of time to talk, but you seem like someone I'd like to get to know. Now, if you're looking at a woman for a long-term relationship, that's decent to say, because you do want to get to know a woman's, both get to know on a sexual level and a non-sexual level. You want to get to know her sexually and non-sexually. So if you're looking for a woman to become your next long-term girlfriend or future wife, it's okay to say something like, you seem like someone I like to get to know. But I'm talking, I like to emphasize casual sex. I emphasize relationships from time to time. But for right now, I'm talking about casual sex. If your objective was casual sex, why the fuck would you ever say something like that to a woman? I ain't trying to get to know no bitch for casual sex. Why do I need to get to know a woman? I want to do anything but get to know her. I don't want her developing any type of emotional bond with me if I want casual sex. So why the fuck would I ever say to a woman, you seem like someone I'd like to get to know? Do you want to meet sometime for coffee? Man, that's the most corny mode 2 shit ever. That ain't direct. For him to even suggest that that's representative direct is laughable to me. To a brother like me, that's laughable. Man, even my mode 2 commentary to women is more bold and smoother than that. I ain't never said no shit like that in my fucking life. Hi, excuse me, hi. I don't have a lot of time to talk, but you seem like someone I'd like to get to know. Do you want to meet sometime for, maybe coffee or lunch? Man, I ain't never said no corny shit like that in my fucking life. And this is a player's handbook. That's what this is called. Rollo Tomassi's player's handbook. And he's recommending you go up to a woman and say, hi, I don't have a lot of time to talk, but you seem like someone I'd like to get to know. Do you want to meet sometime for coffee? Man, get the fuck out of here, man. The fuck? Oh, man. See, and you want to know, I've said this multiple times. You want to know why I sound a lot of times so irritated? In addition to him, I just feel like he shouldn't have mentioned my name. Other than he should have just referred my books to people. But he shouldn't have mentioned my name other than that. Other than that, why I'm irritated? Because see, when I work with my clients and they read a book like this, I have to spend a significant amount of time helping them weed this type of bullshit out of their system. And that's why a lot of times other people's dating advice books irritate me. People sometimes say, Alan, why do you allow yourself to get irritated by the things other people say that are different than you? Obviously not everyone's going to agree with how you do things, and people are going to have their own way of doing things. I recognize that. Different PUAs, different dating coaches are going to have their things. Again, all of the methods are going to really, for the millionth time, are going to fall into one of these categories. Attraction, basically looks game, sexual reputation game, direct verbal game, which includes verbal seduction, using persuasive charm and straightforward honesty. Indirect verbal game, dishonesty and or psychological and emotional manipulation. He tries to defend manipulation in his book. There's a couple of chapters where he actually basically more or less tries to defend being manipulative with women. He basically at one point in the book says, women who are manipulative game players themselves love a man who's a manipulative game player. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing on that. He says that. There's an excerpt in this book where he basically says a woman who's a manipulative game player loves a man who's a manipulative game player. And he basically goes on to imply that that's what a player is. You could almost say he tries to suggest that the definition of a player is a guy who's good at manipulating women. Fuck out of here. That's anything but a fucking player. If you have to resort to lies and manipulation, you're anything but a player. You anything but a player. He thinks Rollo, and there's a lot of other guys like that, they think anybody who's gotten a lot of women in bed is a player. No, they're not. No, they're not. I said that in my recent live stream. If you got a lot of women in bed because of category number 3, you're not a player. You're a lying womanizer, lying manipulative womanizer. You're not a player. You got a lot of women in bed because of this method. You're not a player. You're a trick or a sugar daddy. You're a trick or a sugar daddy, but you are not a player. Hugh Hefner was not a player. He was a sugar daddy. And for damn sure, if you got multiple women in bed using a combination of physical aggression and drugs and alcohol, you're a fucking date rapist. You're a fucking date rapist. I hope you get fucked in your ass in prison. Yeah, I said it. Quote me on the shit. Nobody in category number 3, category number 4, category number 5, in my book falls in the category of a fucking player. Nobody. Nobody who operates in category 3, category 4, or category 5 is a player. But yeah, now what he said ain't totally invalid. He said women who are manipulative game players love men who are manipulative game players. Why do you think that is? Y'all should know. Let me go to my Jabber. Why would any woman who's a manipulative game player want a man who's a manipulative game player? Thank you, retired 2019. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the commentary. I appreciate it. Ha! There we go. Thank you, E365. I've said this, I don't know how many times, I'll say it again. This relates to that video I did just within the last 2 weeks about false equivalencies. I just did a little over a week ago called about false equivalence. When men, I went in on men who say that it's okay to be a liar and manipulator because that's what women really want. And here's what I explained. In that video, I'm explaining it for the upteenth time. The only women who like interacting with a man who's a liar and a manipulator is a woman who thinks she's a better liar and manipulator. Drops mic, drops mic, drops mic, drops mic, drops mic, drops mic. Denzel, help a brother out when I need you. That's the only women who it is their preference, their specific preference to deal with a man who's a liar and a disingenuous and misleading man. I learned, trust me, whatever game I didn't know about women before I moved to Los Angeles, I'm gonna tell you, and this could happen in multiple cities, but one of the best cities, if you wanna study, take time to study women who are master manipulative time wasters, master gold diggers, top now, I'm talking about like the top tier in those categories. Gold digger, time waster, husband thieves. If there's one city, it probably would be true of New York because it's such a large city. To a far less extent, might be true maybe of a city like Miami or Houston, Chicago, but definitely Los Angeles. That's the national headquarters for all them women, man. When it comes to women who are a combination of manipulative and materialistic, Los Angeles is the national headquarters for that shit. Trust me, man. I learned from the women who were operating at a high level. I became their student. They taught me the game. I used to work at movie studios and TV studios with women who were in that category. Women who were what I call top tier gold diggers, top tier manipulative time wasters, and everything associated with that. The only women who are dishonest, disingenuous, misleading, and manipulative themselves, they love a man who thinks he's manipulative. They're like this. They're rubbing their hands together like, yeah, bring it, bring it. Because they know they're going to run game on that dude. They know they're going to run game on that dude. They know it. They know they're going to run game on that dude. If they weren't able to, gold diggers wouldn't exist. Drops mic. Whoa! Denzel. Back me up. If women didn't confidently know that they was going to run game on all these motherfuckers out here, there wouldn't be no such thing as a gold digger. A sugar baby. A highly profitable stripper. There would be no such thing as them bitches. There would be no such thing as a manipulative time waster. That's the evidence right there. The fact that those categories of women exist lets you know that women regularly run game on these naive motherfuckers. And guys like Rollo come on their podcast and bitch about those women. But yet he writing a player's handbook. The godfather of the red pill movement, who's been known for whining and complaining about feminists and these radical feminists and shit, and these manipulative women, but yet he's now some kind of guru on game. The fuck out of here. That's why all you motherfuckers whining and complaining about bitches, because you don't know how to stop their manipulative head games like I do. I ain't never been on this YouTube bitching about women. Even the radical feminists, fuck them. I just don't deal with them. It's you motherfuckers, a lot of you Rollo followers online bitching about women on a fucking weekly basis. And yet this dude gonna write a book called The Definitive Guide on get the fuck out of here. One of the reasons why men get manipulated because of books like this. This is one of the reasons why men getting their money wasted, their time wasted. Women doing paternity fraud on their naive dumbasses because of books like this. That's why motherfuckers going out wanting to shoot motherfuckers because of goofy ass books like this. Yeah, I said it. Quote me on the shit. All what's wrong with men in society today is because of books like this. Bullshit books promoting this bullshit game. You ain't saving no lives with this book. Sorry, Rollo, man. I can't give you no props, even though, again, in full disclosure, I haven't read the whole book. There's only about 4 chapters in the book I read from start to finish. But, bro, you're off the mark with this book. I give you props on your original book, Rational Male, maybe 1 or 2 of your other books. This book, based on what I've read so far, you're off the mark with this fucking book, man. This is a bullshit game book. This is a bullshit game book. And again, I wouldn't have had nothing to say about this book if you would have left my name and my Mo One brand out of it. Then I wouldn't have done no live stream. But the fact that you include my name and my Mo One brand in this bullshit book pisses me the fuck off. All this overthinking, over analytical, theoretical bullshit. I mean, who the fuck talks like this in real life? Hi, I don't have a lot of time to talk, but you seem like someone I would really like to get to know. Do you want to meet sometime for maybe, coffee, breakfast, lunch? Who the fuck talks like that? Huh? Enlighten me. Maybe I'm the one in the cave or something. Who the fuck talks like that in real life? Other than somebody who's just clueless, got no game like what so fucking ever. Who the fuck talks like that? Man, if I talk like that with women, I'd be a 59-year-old virgin. Would you like to get some coffee sometime? Hey, it's a thought. Right now, I would say no, but I'm not going to 100% outrule that. I say this. He doesn't mention it enough necessarily, I think, to validate some kind of defamation lawsuit. But yeah, I don't like the fact that my name and my Mo One is even mentioned in this book. Real talk. I don't like the fact that it was even mentioned. But the thing about it, again, I knew he was going to mention me. I swear to God, I knew before I even read the book, got a copy of the book. My intuitive sense said, when I first heard about the book, I said, I bet you any money he ends up mentioning me and my Mo One approach. I knew he was going to mention me in this book. Again, if he was going to mention me, he should have just gave me an endorsement as both an author and a dating coach and left it there. Then I would have no issue with him. Particularly in his chapter called Direct Game versus Indirect Game. He should have said something to the effect of, there's a lot of different variations of indirect verbal game that men use, and there's a lot of variations of direct verbal game that men use. One variation, there's one guy I happen to know personally who has the label of the godfather of direct verbal game advice and wisdom, Alan Roger Currie. If you want to find out more about his style of direct verbal game, then you should go check out his books and, see what you think. And just left it there. That's the comment I feel like he should have had if he was going to go as far as to mention my name. He should have invited people to check out my books, do their own due diligence and research on what my Mo One approach is about, and then just left it at that, instead of taking these like subtle jabs at my Mo One approach, man. Like this thing, he says, see, this is wrong. Here's another passage I found. This he says something that's just totally wrong and invalid. He says, if you can see my mouse towards the bottom left, he says, okay, I'll start with this paragraph above it. Direct game has its uses. It can work in certain situations, but if you're a guy who has little natural ability or needs aftermarket game to get lit, I don't know specifically what he means by aftermarket game, you'll have a higher success rate with indirect game. This is the mystery method effect I mentioned in Breadcrumbs and the Flow chapter. By definition, direct game destroys the intrigue a woman might have about you. Going direct is anti-seductive in that it kills the emotional associations and imagination women need to figure you out from the very beginning. See, I'm glad I didn't read the whole book because I'd probably end up destroying this whole book. Dude, that is the goofiest shit I've ever read. That is one of the goofiest, most highly invalid shit I've ever read. Let's start. He said direct verbal game destroys a woman's sense of intrigue in you. False. That is false, man. That is false. See, this is how I can tell he's not talking from real life experience. He's saying shit that he thinks sounds valid. Sounds like it's fairly valid advice on paper, but it's false. Dude, if anything, it's just the fucking opposite. If anything, it's just the fucking opposite. Dude, again, I already referenced this conversation. I'm going to reference the conversation I had in my car with the woman who was my mother's former student. This way back in October 1990. Now, of course, the relevance of that conversation, that was a conversation that led to me first developing my 4 modes of verbal communication: mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 4. I was using mode 1 starting with 1984, August of 84, basically verbal selection story number 1. That's when I first started using mode 1. But I didn't actually start calling it mode 1 until October of 1990. And it was right after I had a conversation with this woman in my car. Anyway, one thing she mentioned when we first pulled over into the parking lot, if you know the story, we pulled over to this parking lot of this motel and we started talking. And she ended up telling me that it was my mode 1 hardcore approach that made her intrigued by me. And I've had many women say that because it goes so much against social conventions. That's why women aren't. Another example I get, the story I talked about with the woman who sold liquor at this nightclub in Chicago called Excalibur. She used the word intrigue. She said, "You're so bold. It intrigues me that you're so bold." Even the woman who went off on me that I was just talking about earlier in this live stream, the woman in California, woman who first went off on me, she was a erotic hypocrite, this real like snooty, nose up in the air, bougie type bitch, went off on me, and then like 45 minutes to an hour later, after she went off on me, she was sucking my dick in her SUV. She used the word intrigue. A lot of women have told me, Alan, the fact that you're so verbally bold and so sexually straightforward, that's intriguing to me. And what they were going to say is that most guys don't have the confidence or boldness, the balls to even pull that off. Just the fact that you have the balls to pull that off is intriguing. See, here's how indirect guys think. This is the goofiness. Let that Alan Roger Currie, the professor, break some shit down to you. Here's what goofy indirect motherfuckers think. They think if you're too quick to let a woman know what your specific sexual desires, interests, and intentions are, that means you're going to put yourself in a more vulnerable position to be exploited and manipulated. That's what the vast majority, if not all, guys who promote indirect verbal game think. They think if you talk about sex too quickly, too straightforwardly, too explicitly, that at minimum, you're going to put yourself in a more vulnerable position to be used and exploited and taken advantage of. And at maximum, you might come across as some kind of creep and or overly aggressive harasser. That's what they think, which is all bullshit. This is all bullshit. Let me reference, I've told the story a number of times, reference it again. Y'all know when I spoke in London in November 2010. Y'all know when I spoke in London. I don't think I can find it. Shit. Okay. Now, this is a fuzzy picture. But this is me when I spoke in London. On the far left, you see David X. The woman next to David X, I cannot remember her name. And the Asian woman to the right, closest to me, her name was Sophie. This was in late November of 2010 at the Direct Dating Summit Weekend Conference for Men, sponsored by the aforementioned Sasha Degay. Now, at one point, the Asian woman, again, if you've heard this story, just bear with me. I've told this story at least probably a dozen times. I told it at the 21 convention, 2017. The woman named Sophie says, Alan, with all due respect, I don't believe you ever have to verbalize your specific sexual desires and interests to women. She kind of like even teased me and said something like, like, duh. It's not like we women, it ain't like we don't know you want to fuck us. She said, we as women, we know as soon, just like the woman who was my mother's former student said. She said the same thing, which is true. She said, we women, we know as soon as you're friendly and or flirtatious with us that you want to fuck us. It ain't like it's rocket science. That's what my mother's former student said, and that's what this Asian woman who was on stage essentially said. She said, so I don't see the need for you to verbalize it. And I called this at the 21 convention. I said, this was a crucial moment, what I would call a credibility moment for me. Because if I didn't respond to this right, it could have ruined my whole credibility for the rest of my career. Because about 3/4 of the guys in the audience start, rubbing their chins like, I don't know, Alan, I think she got a point. I think she got a point. Why do you need to verbalize your sexual desires, interests, and intentions if a woman already knows or at least assumes that you want to fuck her? Valid question. See, here's the thing, man. Here's the thing with Professor Alan Roger Currie. I'll use this example. I've used it before. I'm going to give you 3 scenarios. Let's say you put me in a room with 5 women. 5 women. You put me in a room with 5 women. And let's say you talk to these women about me before I enter the room. They know about me. They've seen video clips of me. They might have listened to a few episodes of the Erotic Conversationalist. They might own my book, Who Said Again. And let's say you come to me and you say, Alan, I'm about to have you interact with 5 women in the room. All 5 of these women want to give you some pussy. Like definite, no hesitation. All 5 of these women in this room want to give you some pussy. So let me quiz my chat room. If I'm in that room with those 5 women and say basically all 5 women are reciprocators, sexual reciprocators, do you think I'm gonna feel obligated to immediately start talking about sex? Do you think I'm gonna feel obligated to immediately start talking about sex in the first minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes? Yes or no? It's almost a rhetorical question, but yes or no? Goku Black, no. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. If you put me in a room with 5 women who are basically sexual reciprocators, I could talk about sex fairly quickly, but I wouldn't feel necessarily compelled to. Why? Because I know they're going to give me some pussy. I know they're going to give me some pussy. So for me, there's no rush. On the exact opposite end, let's say this same guy put me in a room with 5 women and he told me ahead of time that all of them were definitely rejectors. Absolutely had no interest in having sex with me. Basically, all 5 were rejectors. Do you think I would talk about sex with these women? Not even a 1% chance. Not even a 1% chance. Now, finally, the third scenario will be this. Well, I just use all 5 of these archetypes, my 5 archetypes. If you had me in a room with like one of each, one reciprocator, one wholesome pretender, one erotic hypocrite, one rejecter, one manipulative time waster, do you think I'm going to bring up sex fairly quickly and straightforwardly? You damn right I am. You damn right I am. Of the 3 scenarios, that's the number 1 scenario where I'm going to feel compelled to start talking about fucking the quickest, the most straightforwardly, and even the most explicitly. Is if you put me in a room with one of each. Why? Because at bare minimum, the 2 women I'm trying to weed out the quickest is the rejecter and the manipulative time waster. I'm trying to weed them the fuck out so I can concentrate on the reciprocator, wholesome pretender, erotic hypocrite. I want the manipulative time waster to be identified as quickly as fucking possible. You got that? Okay. Now, going back to, before I went on a slight tangent, the woman in Sophie, the Asian woman on stage. So yeah, she said, I don't see why you got to verbalize your sexual desires. And again, about 3/4 of the guys' eyes are like, yeah, I don't know, Alan. I think she got a point. I think she got a point. I think she got a point. And I just went like this. At the time, I kind of like, calm down, calm down. This is what I went. I went like, I had my arms, wait. I was going like this to the crowd, like calm down, calm down. And I was letting the audience know that I'll straighten things out in due time. Because everybody was treating me, a lot of people treat me in the audience like, she got you, she got you, she got you, Alan, she got you. Valid point, she got you. So David X was actually the first one to get things started. Shout out to David, the late, great David X. About 10 minutes after she said that comment, she starts talking about this friend of hers. Let's call him Charlie. I don't remember the guy's name. Let's call him Charlie. She starts talking about this platonic friend of hers named Charlie, who she was talking about just such a great friend to her. She's just really singing the praises of her great platonic friend, Charlie. And David X just gives her a look like basically like, you full of shit. And then finally he says it. He basically tells her, he said, David X, man, he could be mode 4 when he wanted to be. He said, because his term, he always said his term for manipulative time waster was simply a bitch. What I call manipulative time waster, he just said his term for them was just simply a bitch. A disingenuous bitch. And he said to Sophie, he said, I might be paraphrasing on, but basically he said, you're full of shit. You got that raspy voice. He said, you're full of shit. And she was like, excuse you, I beg your pardon, excuse you. And she was like, why do you think I'm full of shit? He said, because you're being a bitch. And people in the crowd started laughing. He said, because you're being a bitch. And she said, how am I being a bitch? He said, because this guy Charlie wants to fuck you. He said, I dare you to tell me that this guy Charlie don't want to fuck you. And then once he said that, I knew he was getting to where I was going to go. But he went there, but he beat me to the punch. And he said, you being a bitch. He said, you know deep down that Charlie wants to fuck you. And she started going like this, shrugging, so like, well, he's like, no, basically, again, I'm paraphrasing all his words, but essentially he was like, you're being full of shit. You know damn well that Charlie, your platonic friend, wants to fuck you. He's not genuinely interested. Basically, he was fun clubbing. What I call fun clubbing is what Charlie was doing. Where's mine? He was fun clubbing, man. Charlie was fun clubbing. And David X was like, he fun clubbing. Well, he didn't say fun clubbing, but he was like, he wants to fuck you. And here was the key. Here's what gave me back my credibility. She said, well, it's possible that, yeah, he might want to have sex with me, but he's never said that to me, like specifically or straightforwardly. He's never actually said that to me. And then what did I do? I just looked at the audience and went, boom. I just went, like I told you. And everybody started giving me an ovation. They started giving me an ovation. All that to say, man, the purpose, again, of being more one is not to identify the reciprocators. It's not to identify the reciprocators. The main benefit of more one is so you can quickly identify those manipulative time wasters, man. She was wasting Charlie's time and money. She knew he wanted to fuck her. But she took advantage of the fact that he was being mode 2, mode 3. He was being, at minimum, he was being vague and ambiguous. And at maximum, he probably was lying to her and giving her the misleading impression that he was content with being a platonic. He wanted to fuck that bitch. Ain't no guy want to be platonic friends with a woman that gets their dick hard. Name me one. No man wants to be platonic friends with a woman that gets their dick hard. I know I don't. I'll speak for myself. I ain't never, ever, ever wanted to be platonic friends with a woman that gets my dick hard. If a woman gets my dick hard, I want her sucking my dick or leaving me the fuck alone. One of the two. I want her giving me some pussy or leaving me the fuck alone. On that note, I am out of here. Excuse me if I missed the super chat. I think I caught most of them. Wait. Oh, Student of Game. Thank you, Student of Game. Basically, Student Games just summed it up in a nutshell, man. I did a video called that. Why don't you indirect guys just openly admit you're afraid of rejection? That's what my book, No Free Attention, is about. Related to Student Games comment. That's what my most recently released audiobook, No Free Attention, is about. It's basically saying to guys, man, y'all need to just come clean and say you fucking afraid of rejection, man. You're fucking afraid of rejection. And these guys try to lie about that. They try to avoid and deflect from that. When it comes down to it, man, I said it before, I say it again. Any guy who operates in category 3, scared of rejection. Any guy who does transactional sex, they don't like rejection. I don't know if I go as far as say they're scared of it. They just don't like it. And guys who engage in date rape, they refuse to accept it. So yeah, that would be my assessment. Indirect guys are scared of it. These guys just don't like it. And these guys, they refuse to accept it. But yeah, I mean, it's like, dude, yeah, this dude said, okay, so first thing he said was about direct game destroy. No, it don't. Going back to my original point, direct game does not, I would say it enhances women's intrigue if your objective is casual sex, for sure. That's what women have always, the feedback I've always gotten from women. Women are intrigued by guys who are a combination of verbally bold, verbally direct, verbally smooth, and seductive. Because you're going against the grain of society. You're going against the grain. You ain't giving into, what's the woman, Victoria? Victoria lays it out, man. She got like 1.5 million views talking about my book. She got more views than any single video of mine. That video, the web, her YouTube page is My 9-Level Life. That's what she basically said. She said, and I'm slightly paraphrasing words, but in this year, she said the number one thing that's appealing about Alan Roger Currie's More One approach is it makes you come across as a guy who doesn't give a fuck about being rejected. She said, that shit's hot. She said, that shit's hot. She said, I love when a guy has that underlying attitude like, I could give a fuck if you reject me. I could give a fuck. That's me. When I talk to women, I talk to them with an attitude like, I could give a fuck if you reject me. And then he goes on He says going direct is anti-seductive in that it kills the emotional. Why are you looking for emotional association from a woman you want to have casual sex with? That's my $2 million question. Now, if you're talking about a long-term relationship, you know, what he might be saying might be halfway valid. But I'm talking about strictly for casual sex. Why are you trying to build an emotional association with a woman you want to have casual sex with? That defeats the whole purpose of having casual sex. I've said that a million times. That defeats the whole purpose of having casual. The whole purpose of casual sex is to avoid emotional connections and emotional bonds. Drops Mike. Drops Mike. Drops Mike. Denzel, where you at when I need you?
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Mode 1.
Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
I bet the king would fuck me really good.
Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.
I have to agree with you on the communication piece, because I actually did take a session with Alan Roger Currie, and he gave me a line that I did not think was going to work, and it worked. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God!
Man, he's the master. He's the master of the verbal seduction. He got that communication piece down pat.
It really worked. It just simply worked, and I just didn't think it was going to work at all.
Some guys have natural handles. Some guys have a better natural shot, but you can always improve your shot. And sex is damn sure something you can fucking learn. Look, dude, you want to learn how to talk better? I'm hiring Alan Roger Currie to get my dirty talk game on, because it's always been something I want to get better at.
Verbal seduction, man. I'm like, clearly, this guy is the Michael Jordan of seduction. Like, you know, come on now.